Didn't I just? There we go. We are live.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting for Chris to show up. Don't know if Scott's going to show up or not.
Yeah, we miss Scott.
Yeah, he said he sent us a message that he might be showing up, but he might not. But hopefully we'll get him back soon.
Right.
Otherwise, we're building a deeper bench with Wilson and Chris, and Jeff might be able to come on again in a couple of weeks because he's ended his job where he's working on Friday nights and is starting a new one. So, and Daisy has to get better before she can come back on. She's still recovering from surgery. Now these two assholes are here. Woohoo!
The asshole show.
I was gonna say this is the show you can come to where the comic book show where nobody on the comic book show will probably be going to see Doctor Strange this week.
Right. There's a movie?
Yeah, there's a movie. Can you believe it?
Yeah,
I'm actually surprised. All of a sudden, I saw like reviews start to trickle in. I'm like, what? That movie was opened already? I didn't even know.
Okay, so it's another Marvel movie that gets increasingly complicated for no reason whatsoever.
I don't know. I watch them every now and then. Like I watch every second or third movie, and they're okay.
I kind of gave up after Iron Man 3. I still wanted to go to the movies a couple times, but then I didn't because I only want to watch the movie 6 weeks after they premiere.
Yeah.
And, back in the day, 6 weeks after they premiered, they were still all on theaters.
I don't actually go to the movies to watch them. Yeah. I watch them when they hit cable or whatever, Disney.
Yeah,
Plus
now, of course.
The last Marvel movie I saw in the theaters, I think, was the first Hulk movie. That was the last time I went to the movies to see it.
Okay.
I really haven't been to the movies in 20 years now, almost. It's crazy. I just don't go. I was never a big movie goer to begin with.
Yeah, the last time I went to the movies was to watch Ford v Ferrari.
That one's right up your alley.
Yeah, but it's got things.
Everybody loved that one. What, you didn't love it?
Yeah, they took liberties with the story for the sake of drama, which kind of worked.
Okay.
I don't actually have a problem with that. But the auto racing scenes are way exaggerated. They're like on Driven, on the one with Stallone, Driven.
They want to get excited. Days of Thunder, isn't that the one everybody likes to?
Yeah, but Days of Thunder is actually good.
Okay.
It's more than plausible. Driven makes Driven takes liberties with the laws of physics, and people who are waiting for auto racing movies, which is auto racing fans, because the normal
else is.
Yeah. We want to see something realistic.
Okay.
I saw Rush the other day on TV.
Rush? Which one is that?
Rush is the one that chronicles the fight for the 1976 Formula One World Championship between Niki Lauda and James Hunt. James Hunt is played by Thor.
Isn't there a Formula One TV show on now?
Yeah, it's a reality show.
Oh, it's a reality show. Okay. I just saw it flip by somewhere, so I was like, oh, okay.
The guys now, they I don't know why they do a reality show with them. They're very, very boring. Nobody tries to be an interesting person. The thing about Rush is about James Hunt, who was a very interesting person in the paddock. He was the type of guy that would make it was supposed to be on the grid waiting for the race to start, and instead he was in the pits restroom banging one of the grid girls.
Good evening, Sleepy Reader.
Hey, Damien.
Oh, did you just see? I saw Sleepy commenting on it. Mind the Comics finally got his Portuguese copy of Barry Windsor Smith's Monsters and didn't like it. So that was a thread I saw on He found the writing too mediocre.
Well,
I
I still
thought
have
it
to
was
go
okay.
by it, but
He offered it. Here's an interesting point he made that I thought about when I was reading it. He didn't like the Nazis and monsters in it, the literal Nazis and literal monsters in it. It was too. He didn't think they needed to be there. And I remembered back to when I was reading it. I thought the same thing at first when I was reading it. Then I realized that they're not there for me. He's using them for the people who wouldn't read it otherwise. The reason that actual Nazis and an actual monster are in there is not for people like me who are going to read a slice of life book about really sad people having really sad lives. It's for people who would read a Barry Windsor Smith book because they love Conan and all this other superhero stuff. And the Nazi and literal Nazi and monster give them something to hang. So he was using them. I don't know how to call. I don't know what you call a literary device that is literal and figurative at the same time. Because superhero people are used to their they're used to like their monsters. Has Paulo read Monsters? Sleepy Reader wants to.
Not yet. Need to. I still haven't time to go and pick it up. I think I may have time to buy it tomorrow.
And like superhero people are used to their monsters sort of being literal but not literal. They're literal monsters because you're reading stories, but they also stand for something. And superhero people get that. So when you put literal monsters in a story that's not a superhero story, they're both literal and figurative. So it's kind of like for the superhero people, they're literal. And for us, they're like, I realized that they're like, I could ignore the monster and Nazi parts and still enjoy the book because they were there to be figurative to me and literal or some. I don't even know the words to describe it because it's like this other level of thing. Because I was reading it and I'm going, why? This story does not need a literal monster because it's about the human beings being monsters. And then I said, I don't think the monsters are there for me because that's I can remember. Genre fiction lives in the literal and metaphor intersection. Well, this was the literal and metaphor intersection at the literal and metaphor intersection. It was kind of weird. There was this, because I can always remember, I have to be reminded of this sometimes. I was talking to, it was Dave Sharp who told me this. When Dave Sharp used to work with him in the bullpen, he's been a long-time letterer he's lettered for every company out there. He's still doing lettering. And I said to myself, I don't even remember what it was about. And I said to myself, why are these people telling us this? And he looked at me and said, Jared, that's not for you. I was like, huh? What? And he's like, that's for people. It was something about getting things done. He's like, that is for people who can't get things done. They need to be told that. You can get things done. So to you, there's no reason to tell you that. It's obvious. And I think that's what I came to the conclusion that the Nazi and monsters were in Monsters. They weren't for me. The other part of the book was for me. And there was plenty of the other part of the book. I mean, the literal Nazis and monsters was actually a very small part of the book. But they're there for the people who want to see Nazis and monsters in a Barry Windsor Smith book. King's Poet in the house. I have no patience for the pacing of Monsters. I put it aside. Yeah, Monsters. I read in that's the kind of book I read. I think it took me a week to read it, and read 20 or 30 pages and put it down. Read another 20 pages. I don't think I have to read anything all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, being a monthly collector, I like switching between stuff.
This will actually be a first for me. I've never read anything written by Barry Windsor Smith.
Yeah, I can't. Well, I read Storyteller. That was okay.
Yeah, I never tried his indie stuff. So
yeah, I bought his indie stuff. So because I'm an indie guy, and I imagine Storyteller wasn't even released overseas.
No, not that I know of. Yeah, it's not the type of thing that gets licensed.
Right. Yeah, and it's just such a weird. King Spo. We're just talking about how Mind the Comics finally got monsters and didn't like it. He was the first one I've heard say didn't like it. Before it's sleeping, didn't finish reading it, but he didn't say didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, I since he's not, at least hasn't been a superhero guy for so long, he probably doesn't feel the compulsion to go with the flow on. It doesn't, not compulsion. It doesn't go with the flow on what to expect. Like guys who come from superheroes, we are willing to test them when they get out of the comfort zone that we're used to seeing them in.
Well, it really isn't a superhero story. That's right. Just that it was a dark story of family troubles and abuse with a smidgen of superhero in it.
Right.
So, yeah, I think didn't Smith write Weapon? I think he did write Weapon X.
Oh, he did. Oh, I always forget that.
Yeah,
he did write Weapon X.
I don't think I've read Weapon X since the 90s.
Yeah, I read Weapon X 3 years ago.
They've got a new version of it that I've heard complaints about the coloring in.
Didn't know about Weapon X.
In the oversized edition that just came out with, what are the studio editions?
Yeah, because Marvel is recoloring stuff for no reason whatsoever. And they're
recoloring stuff because they don't have digital files of it.
Yeah, but they could color the stuff like the original ones, and they're not.
See, there's the problem. In order to color stuff like the originals, you have to have somebody who cares and is on top of it, which is what Corey Settlemeyer does. If he's not the one editing it, because you have when picture yourself as a colorist, okay? You're the colorist recoloring, let's say anything, Weapon X. That's the stuff that pays the least.
Right.
So because they're like, well, it's recoloring. It's not the same as coloring. So if coloring pays you $10 a page, recoloring pays you $6 a page. I just made up those numbers. I have no idea. So when you get the recoloring, now, if you were going to color this page, it may take you, I'm going to make up a number again. Let's say you recolor the page, it's going to take you an hour. Just you recoloring it. If you were going to reconstruct the page exactly as it appeared, it's going to take you an hour and 10 minutes because you got to pay attention now. You got to pay attention specifically to the details. You're not just glancing at it and doing... So it's going to take you longer to color a page, longer to reconstruct the coloring of a page than to color it. So what are you going to do? And you get paid less. You're not going to reconstruct it. You're just going to color it, come close. And if you're the editor, you're not even looking. You just don't care. You're not interested because that was always the deal. Corey Settlemeyer was the first one who was interested in the collected editions. That's what he liked to do because that's like a middling position. If you want to be one of the big editors at Marvel and DC, you don't do collected editions. So it's not even like but like I said, Corey liked doing it. I think he's still doing it freelance. I would assume Marvel is low on staff who care anymore. Yeah, Corey is the only one who cared about making the color reconstructions accurate. ever. He was the only one there. When the whole time I was there, and I can tell by the new stuff that people just don't care. Because if you're an editor, that's not a good position. Who wants to spend their day making sure that because think of it, it's more work than having it colored. If you're an editor and someone's coloring something, you just have to look at it and like it. And if you don't like it, you say, fix this. If you're an editor overseeing the color reconstruction, and you have to look at it, you have to match it to the old color, you have to see where it goes off, you have to mark it up, you have to send it back, you have to make sure it's just so much more work to reconstruct the color accurately than to just not care.
Because my LCS's owner has been complaining the last few months about it's not even recoloring, because they do use but what they do is they keep those comics they were colored in a way that took into attention the fact that printing technology at the time sucked. Right. So the color files that exist, they're very bright. So they paint them they print them as they are, right, on new paper. Yeah. And that thing is loud.
They're shockingly bright. And the line screen is so small, it's solid color. Much more solid than it used to be.
Yeah. Because he loved the way that Taschen did the big Spider-Man book, for example. Yeah.
The Taschen Ditko Spider-Man book is the best old color job I've seen to date. Okay.
Yeah. Because the guys, back then they knew that the ink was going to get faded. It was colored in a way that it would be printed as they wanted the color to look. Well, nowadays they color it as it is.
It was printed as bright as possible back in in the newsprint days, but as possible wasn't nearly as bright. I mean. Right. Nowadays, bright is much brighter. Is the older stuff at Marvel Unlimited recolored? I assume so. What it is Corey was in charge of the Masterworks. I think he took over in like 2003, around there. And he had everything, all the color reconstructed. And I think, and last I knew, he quit in like 2007, but kept doing it freelance. So they'd always give him the Masterworks. And then they'd rely on the Masterworks for all the other printing stuff. So if it came out in a Masterworks between like 2003 to now, it's all been color reconstructed that Corey has kept track of and done right, because that's what he does. But if not, who knows? It could come. It's hit or miss depending on what editor was overseeing it and what color. Well, it's not even hit or miss, it's miss. This obviously, if Corey had been overseeing, look at who the editor is in that, the reprint editor in that, like, Weapon X one. That'll tell you who was doing it. How does a company like Marvel in this day and age know if people like recolors or not? Book sales, I guess, are bit of it, but I've been tricked into buying something. They don't care. Really, there's no one in charge of making sure the color reconstruction is good. It just comes out. They do their best. Everybody does their best, but nobody's getting specifically paid to make sure the color reconstruction. They just look and see if it's good, and if they like it, it goes out the door.
Of course, no, the people who complain really don't like recoloring, but it happens across the board. Like a few years ago, they recolored the Incal in France.
Yeah,
it was a complete recoloring job. It had nothing to do with the original, and they for new reprints used the original color because the critics were all on top of them, and the normal audience complained. One thing that my LCS's owner complained about this week was Steve Olive's recoloring job for Alan Moore's Swamp Thing.
Okay, I've heard other people complain about that, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's really not the same. I think Steve Olive was thought he was a remix artist or something.
That's just it. When you're a colorist, you want to do it your way because your way makes you money. Somebody else's way doesn't make you money.
Mm-hmm.
What it is, in order to recolor something, they should pay people extra, but they don't, because it's a harder job to recolor something than to color it, because you got to pay attention to detail. You got to do things not your way. You have to think about it. Meanwhile, if you're doing it your way that you do every month, you've got it down to a science. You know exactly what you're maximizing your efficiencies. Recoloring something does not maximize your efficiencies. That's the problem.
Imagine if the people doing painting restoration at the Louvre thought exactly like that. I don't care.
Well, they're on salary, and it doesn't matter how fast they do it. When you're getting paid by the piece, it matters how fast you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I gonna do $100 worth of work in a day when I can do $200 worth of work in a day?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it comes down to. I can't see reading Marvel online reviews and whatnot. So color reconstructing stay crappy because there's no checks and balances. Yeah, there's no checks and balance. Like I said, it's up to the individual editor to pay attention to the color reconstruction. And Corey is the only one I knew who did that. So that makes it tough. Sounds like it would be easier to use older paper types and collected editions of older books than to waste time. It has nothing to do with the old paper types. It has to do with the technology. The color that was used back in the 60s does not exist. It's not digital. It does not exist anymore. You cannot print non-digital files. The technology is gone. It's like trying to build a Model T Ford on a modern assembly line. You can't do it. The assembly line is built to build specific cars. You can't just say, let's build a Model T today. You can't just say, let's print the color from 1966 today. Technology has changed. It's completely gone. I love the new Weapon X, Corey Settlemeyer, collection editor. Okay. I have the. So he oversaw the cover. I don't know a color. Hey, guy, mind the comics. We were mentioning you in Monsters earlier. Think it looks nice and the paper is not. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the people were complaining about. I think people were complaining the color was too light in places, but I wasn't paying that close of attention to it. But like I said, sometimes getting the color exact can mess you up too if the paper is different and printing is different. That's a problem too, because Corey, I know, like I always mention Deathlock, the recoloring for Deathlock Masterworks, where the colorists were doing something really different with that, in that the colors were doing really something, because they didn't have a gray available to make Deathlock's skin gray. They used a really light purple. And with the color of the off-white color of the paper, it made him look gray. Well, Corey, for the Masterworks, they printed that light purple, and it looks like Lilac Deathlock. And it is the right color. It's just the wrong paper. Yeah. Michael Keller and Keller Art and Color Restoration. Okay. I don't even know that name. Ed Piscor does a good aping it. See, I hate the printing on the Ed Piscor stuff. I bought the I really liked his Hip Hop Family Tree when it was a web comic. So I finally waited and bought the collected edition. I want to throw it in the garbage. I feel it is the most terrible thing because they went too far. It's unreadable. They did such huge dots in such yellow paper that I find the lettering unreadable. It's just like, I'm so pissed off at that Hip Hop Family Tree collected edition. I thought the printing on it was terrible, but they were trying to make it terrible. I do not like when they try to print a new comic so it looks like an antique. That just, I don't like. Okay, it was similar to older games on HD screens. It's almost impossible to match the original. Yeah. It's even different because the technology just doesn't exist. Like you can't take a piece of film that they archived from 1966 and hand it to a printer today. He won't know what to do with it. He'll go, "What am I supposed to do with this?" There actually was, getting back to the hobby, the Recolor issue was big confusion to me. Thanks for clearing it up. I never thought about the digital files issue. There was actually, Marvel actually tried when I was still there in about 2002, 2003. They had me reconstructing some color. And what they did was they found a place that was making their money scanning in old film. Because what it was, before the digital age, everything was film. So just like, 35 millimeter film in your camera, except the film was the size of a comic book page. They literally took a picture of the comic book page and saved it. And for the printing plates, they took, if you ever heard of printing separations, that was literally film. So there was one page for the magenta, there was one piece of film for the magenta, one for the cyan, one for the yellow, and one for the black. And they had this company specialized in scanning in the film itself and then sending it to Marvel. And then I was on a special computer with special software in it that put the film back together. So it was like, and I had to make sure everything was the right size and matched up. But that was the whole idea. And they scanned in they even printed a few things. But the problem was the line screen, the dots. Fans and people did not like the fact that they can see the dots. If you scan in film, dots if you think of Roy Lichtenstein, him back in the 60s making those comic book pages, painting in the dots. The line screen is how many dots per inch in the printing. And it's literally a screen. It's like your screen door. A printing screen is literally like that. Picture a screen door on a piece of paper, and you block out the places you don't want the ink to come in. And then you rub ink over the whole thing of it. And any place that isn't blocked out, ink hits the paper. That's literally what printing is. And the tighter the screen, the denser the color. Well, in the 60s, that stuff had pretty loose screens. Which is why you can see the dots. By the time, nowadays, if you were to look at one of these comics and put a loop on it, a magnifying glass, you need a magnifying glass to see the dots, but they're still there because the dots are so close together. But the stuff they were scanning in from the 80s, and even in the 80s and the 90s, the line screen was much bigger. So they ended up, when you saw the final finished product, people didn't like it because they could see the dots. Because people who are used to the dense color of today didn't like the line screen. So it's funny when I hear people complain they don't like the colors too bright, they don't like the paper. People didn't like the line screen. They didn't like to see the dots either. So it's kind of interesting that you can't please everybody. Weapon X was originally colored by Windsor Smith. Lots of white pages had highlights. Maybe a different... Yeah, that could be it. Good evening, Comic Crack. For the color scanning job, you were a computer, special computer, G.I. Joe boys. Yeah.
Comic Crack just did a video on Cheval Noir. Cheval Noir, if you don't remember, was the anthology that I think it was Jean-Marc L'Officier who edited for Dark Horse. Yeah, they reprinted European stuff.
I got some of that Cheval Noir stuff. There was some good stuff in there and some clunkers. It was okay.
Although since I've never read it, I don't know if they just broke up albums and serialized them, or if they had some actual short stories in there. Because short stories in France, they've become kind of rare since.
Yeah, because they don't get anywhere else.
Right.
Like you don't have Noir.
Yeah, because in France they don't have magazines to put them out anymore.
Right. stay away from the later issues is all I have to say.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I have some of those issues. Let me show you. I got 6 comics this week. Let me show you the first one. As far as I know, it's all broken up stuff, but I don't have the whole run yet. Yeah, sometimes they throw 1 or 2 page things into there, like in the image anthology that's coming out now. They're doing like a 2-page Scotty Young story. I assume that's not going to get collected anywhere. But speaking of Scotty Young, here's the new Scotty Young book, Twig, issue 1. Scotty Young's just writing it, and the art's by Kyle Strahm, Strahm. With who's on coloring by Jean-Francois Beaulieu, Beaulieu.
Beaulieu.
What was that? Beaulieu. But really, I mean, I wasn't going to pick this up because it looks a little too all ages for me. But the color jumped off the page at me. I really liked the color. Very bright. And it's rated T for teens, so it's not quite all. And it had some great imagery in it. There's a living mountain.
Yeah, just because you're doing comics for kids doesn't mean you have to half-ass it.
No, this is full-assed. It is really well done. And I got to say, and it's a story, this guy Twig here wanted to be a chef. It just happens to, this was a good full first issue. It introduced us to, because the problem I've been having with a lot of first issues I've been buying is I read the first issue and it's okay, but there isn't enough to hook me. This had enough to hook me, even so much that I'm like, you know what? I would rather see this in an oversized hardcover. So I'm like, do I want to buy the issues or wait for an oversized hardcover? Because I think this art would really look nice in an oversized hardcover. So I might do that. But it's the story that this guy Twig is going on. His father was some sort of event. He delivered stuff. This fantasy world of these little guys here, and it's pretty fully realized even in this one issue, where we go with it, and he has to go to this living mountain to pick something up, and there's other guys mining in this living mountain. They're giving him this jewel to have someone go check out. We find out his father just died suddenly, and he was studying to be a chef, which you see him cooking later on, so that's part of his character. But his father died suddenly, so he had to take over for his father, who is, I'm not quite sure what the job is, but it has something to do with delivering things from place to place and having adventures. So I really enjoyed the first issue, I have to say. Like I said, I'm deciding whether I want to put it on my pull list or wait for a collected edition, because I would really like to see this art bigger in a collected edition. It's also there's no bleed on it, so there'll be no gutter loss. I think this will look good in an oversized collector's edition, so I just might wait for it rather than pay $4 an issue.
The thing is, if that thing is for kids, it needs to be cheap. It doesn't need to be a special collector's edition or a special oversized collector's edition.
Well, the special oversized collector's editions are usually cheaper than paying $4 an issue for it. So.
Yeah, but they're going to charge $50 for it.
No, they usually charge $30. Well, I don't know. I haven't bought one in a while.
Well, for $30 for 4 individual issues for $4 each, and then it goes up to $30.
Yeah. That's it. I had a few omnibus that looked like scans of the finished comic page, just reprinted on the cheap, thin paper with dirty marks and all. Grell Green Arrow omnis are like that. Wow, I haven't seen. I know they print a lot of old public domain stuff like that. They just clean up scans of the comics, but I didn't see that. But if I remember right, that some of that Green Arrow stuff was drawn on gray paper that had a tooth to it. So I'd have to see it to know how well they did that. I did lots of CD package printing in the 90s, and it's amazing how better the printing is than even then. Yeah. I inked lines with brush but colored digitally. Boy, did I get exactly the colors. Yeah, when you're doing it digitally. I brought Twig today because of your Wednesday video. I really liked it. I'll buy the other 4. Agree. Oh, so it's only 5 issues. I didn't even check to see, because they don't tell you if it's a mini or not. Let's see. What is it? Oh my goodness. This is the smallest indicia type ever. And it's light yellow.
Oh yeah,
light green.
Yeah, so you can read it perfectly.
Holy cow. What's weird is, let's see, I was looking at this before. It says copyright Scotty Young and Stupid Fresh Mess LLC and Triple Entendre LLC. So I'm wondering if Kyle Stram, if one of those is his, or does he not have a piece of it? He certainly is putting enough work into it to make me think he has a piece of it. Mm-hmm. Scotty Young isn't just paying him to own the... But I wonder if one of those LLCs is Kyle Stram's, and maybe even Jean-Francois Beaulieu. Because that the colorist is half the art in this. Fully asked, yep.
I think we just invented
good prices, but no guarantee they'll do more than a paperback on Twig. Yeah, that's it. I shagged off trying to read the small print and found online that it was a miniseries. Ah, okay. Maybe I'll get the issues. I'll have to see.
You're becoming an influencer.
What was that?
You're becoming an influencer.
At least I influenced Tit Goblin. There's the extent of my influence. I influence about 6 people. Well, yeah, I enjoy, like, that was one where it was the art that sold it to me. It was the art and the color together, because the art and the color work so well together that it's good. It just made me buy it. And I bought I got a collected edition too today. Well, where is it? This just came today. Luba, the Book of Ophelia. And if you remember, oh man, I've talked about Luba before, and it was funny. Luba has been on my Amazon wish list for about 10 years. And if you remember about, I think it was 3 years ago, I mentioned, this also comes in a hardcover that has 3 volumes in it. And that was the hardcover that was on my Amazon wish list for about 10 years. For some reason, not a cheap hardcover either. The cheapest it was about $50 or $60. It went out of print. It went even up fire. You can get it now for about $60. But I ended up like 3 years ago saying, why don't I take this out of the library? Let's see if the library has it. And the library had it. I ordered it from the library, really read it, really liked it. Said I should pick that. It was one I wanted on my shelf because I knew I was going to read it again. Never bought it because it went up to like $100 then. So then it was like the next summer, I think it was like summer 2021, I went and took it out of the library again. And I didn't even read it that time. I just wanted it around and I looked through it. So I had it for like a month. Then I returned it. And it's been on my pull list ever since. And finally I said to myself, why don't I see what the actual... it says it collects 3 books. Let's see what the price on the actual book... Because also the hardcover is like 6x9 size. That always bothered me because this appeared in the Love and Rockets magazine. I'm like, I don't really want it shrunken down. This is magazine size. So I looked on both eBay and Amazon to find these. And this is the first one that came because it came from Amazon. And this one altogether with shipping was $14. And the other two with shipping were $14 together. They haven't arrived yet. But I was like, $28. That's a lot better than $60, and they're full size. So I'm like, why didn't I think of this years ago? Because this came out in 2005, I think. And I think there's multiple sizes and printings of all the Luba books. So I was making sure I got the full size ones. But I also had to wash this one. See this nice white cover? That's because I actually got a paper towel and a little 409 and washed the cup. When I get library books or I get used books, I have to wash them because they're like so filthy. I'm like, I guess they've just been sitting around on shelves, dirty shelves for years. Sleepy Reader has been influenced by me. Jared is a personal influence and also a mental health employee for me. I use his videos to relax and de-stress. Oh, that's good. But I look forward to looking through this and reading this again. Have you ever read Luba?
No, I still have to read Love and Rockets for the first time.
Okay. Well, you can really read any of it. Like Luba, the Jaime stuff is completely different than the Gilbert stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you can start at the beginning or pick up. Like this one actually even says in it, I think, tells you where it came from. And it says, this is volume 21 in the Complete Love and Rockets. So I don't know if you want to read all 21 volumes or just pick up, because they're broken down into stories, and you can probably catch on if you grab anything. But it is terrific stuff. Like I have both Jaime books over there, Locos 1 and 2. And they collect his Maggie and Hopi stories in chronological order. What are the prices going for on GoFundMe trade paperback? Nope, only $14. Not true. It's the hardcover that you need to GoFundMe for, or graphic novels, as they say. But yeah, terrific stuff. And it really could be called. What are her sisters' names? There's Luba. In the beginning, they have a cast of characters sheet, and there's 3 sisters: Luba, Petra, and Fritz. And it really could be called Luba, Petra, and Fritz, because it's about all 3 sisters. Luba just happened to be the first one that was introduced, but really all 3 are in it equally, kind of. So it's interesting that that's the name, but really not the thing. Luba. But yeah, I was happy to see that come today.
I'm wondering what else I need to buy this year.
What's on your to-buy list?
I don't know. Whatever it is. I don't really order stuff because usually there's so much stuff around that I can't afford. That I know I can pick up new stuff and it'll be something I like.
Yeah.
But then going back for things that I missed, unless there's an opportunity to pick it up when they show up, like I did with the Miguel Ancho Prado book.
Just got a message from Chris. He's going to be an hour late. Oh, maybe he'll be here in 15 minutes. I think I forgot to show this last week. I can't remember. But I also read on Hoopla last week. Where is it? What's its name? The Ghost in You, which is the new. How did I get to the end? I want to be at the beginning. Pages. There we go. The new Reckless book by Brubaker and Phillips. I don't think I'm. And it's like, once again, these I have on my Amazon wish list too. For some reason, when something's released as a graphic novel and not individual issues, I'm in no rush to get it because the price always goes down on them. It's like the $25 retail price on like the second book is down to $15 now. I'll pick that up for another time. We'll be curious to hear what people say about the new Reckless book. It was my least favorite of the Reckless books. Not that I didn't like it. Not that I won't get it eventually. But it wasn't about the Reckless character, the guy. It was about his right hand, Gal Friday. She works in the Reckless. The 4 stories are about, I think they take place in the early 80s or the late 70s, one or the other. And the guy kind of has a shady background. And now he's a sort of he's a fixer. He's an unlicensed private eye in Southern California somewhere, maybe LA. I can't remember exactly. Probably LA, maybe Hollywood. So the first 3 books are about his cases. He's got a case, and it's about the case, and it's sort of hard-boiled or sunshine detective stuff, I should say, because it takes place in LA. There's lots of sunshine. It's not noir. And I enjoyed all 3 of them. This one is not really hard-boiled. The woman gets herself into trouble, but it's more about she's sort of a artsy outsider who works at a place that shows films in the early 80s, and she doesn't quite fit in. And it's more slice of life, though. She's got a case that she picks up what seems like a simple case from an old Hollywood scream queen. And of course things go wrong, but I wasn't a huge fan of the slice of life stuff. I think only because I like slice of life comics, and I always say this about superhero guys, like the Hawkeye stuff that everybody liked. Who wrote that?
Matt Fraction.
The David Aja Hawkeye stuff.
Yeah, Matt Fraction.
Matt Fraction wrote. To me, that was, mainstream superhero slice of life stuff. To me is like, you know what? I read guys who do slice of life stuff full time. So the part-time guys usually aren't as good. And this seemed like part-time slice of life. So I was a little, though it was okay. It was kind of my least favorite of the 3, but of the 4. But maybe it'll grow on me. We'll see. Like I always like Brubaker and Phillips stuff. Even their stuff that's not my favorite still makes my like pile. But I just figured I'd remember that. Well, let's see. We'll be curious. Good to know. I haven't enjoyed the others. I enjoyed the others, so I'm glad. But I read all the others on Hoopla. And I have the first one over there because they're all on my Amazon wish list. My Amazon wish list is good for my family to buy me presents at my birthday and Christmas. So that's the Matt Fraction. Yeah, that's who wrote and they weren't bad at all. I just found them a little fluff. Because if I want to read slice of life, I got Box Office Poison and other things. I got Daniel Clowes. Matt Fraction doing Hawkeye is not going to be better than Daniel Clowes and his weird slice of life stuff. Yeah, but all of those Reckless books were on Hoopla the day they came out. So I'm like, yeah, may as well read them here first and wait to get them. My Jerry's Artorama e-gift card has arrived. Since I spent over $100 at Jerry's Artorama, they're giving me a $20 gift card or something like that. I was like, oh, look at that. I always wonder if they'll ever actually show up because they're like, we'll send them to you a month after you buy stuff. It's like, all right.
By that time, you'll have forgotten.
Yeah.
Well, we can get discounts on markers that will dirty your hands.
That was the free one that dirtied my hand because There was a new one, and I didn't use it right, and it was all confusing.
What's the difference between both ends on that one?
There's a brush tip. Whoops, let me come over here. A brush tip and a chisel tip. That's usually they have a chisel tip and a brush tip. Some of them have like a bullet tip, as they call it, which is a round one, and a brush tip, or these Tombos. These ones have been around for a while. Tombow brush markers. I guess there's always the question, do I only read Dan Clowes or I read the lesser versions? I was considering that with a comic of a few weeks ago called Statics. Ah, okay. Yeah. I'm okay with lesser versions if it's kind of the guy's own take on something, but lesser versions of like someone who does something else real well full time is kind of like, guys who do Matt Fraction did superheroes real well. So why do I want it's not only a lesser version of Slice of Life, it's a lesser version of the writer. And so it's kind of like, don't know if I need that. The creator of Statics even talked about wanting to be like Clowes. It must be tough because Clowes' stuff is genuinely weird. Having just read like A Velvet Glove, Cast in Iron a few weeks ago again, it is genuinely weird. It is hard to fake genuinely weird. It is hard to do genuinely weird when you're not. It really is. I'm getting my sister to bring down some art supplies from the States for me from Dick Blick. Do you find the website hard to browse? No. I use Dick Blick all the time. It's easy. I use Jerry's Artorama too. Those are the two I use. They're both pretty easy to use. You just they just have categories, and you go through the categories if you want to browse. I do that all the time. Dad Clowns and Ed the Happy Clown. Yeah. Chester Brown. Chester Brown is definitely weird. Chester Brown is weird doing his normal stuff. Chester Brown doing his adaptation of the Bible is pretty weird. Or should I say his adaptation of prostitution in the Bible. That's a weird topic to pick. There's nothing that's going to be unweird when your topic is prostitution in the Bible. I really enjoyed that. Mary wept at the feet of Jesus. That's another one I got a month or two ago. Have you read much Chester Brown, Paulo?
No. I'm very unfamiliar with it.
Okay. I love his stuff. He started out with a book called Yummy Fur. This is in the it started as a mini comic, as a lot of things did in the mid-'80s. Mid-'80s was like the era of the mini comic. And then I think it was Vortex Press picked it up and made it into a full-size comic. Yeah. There is no irony in Chester Brown. Oh yeah, that guy is earnestly weird also. And I just remember, like, it came out when I was in college, and my friends and I, who of course were art students, loved his weirdness. And it started out just as little short mini comic stories. Like the one of his famous ones that we giggled at all the time was The Man Who Couldn't Stop. And it was just this guy, and it would just and there was you could tell there was no plan in the early ones. There was just little stories in a mini comic, even though it's full size now. There was just a guy sitting on the toilet, taking a dump, going, I don't think I can stop. I don't think I can stop. Suddenly the whole toilet fills up. Then the whole room fills up. And then the story just ends. Then I think I don't know if it was the same issue or the next issue. All of a sudden, he had a story about these aliens who, in some alternate world, who were trying to figure out for a way to get to dump their waste, to get rid of their waste. It was filling up and they found this hole in the multiverse that they just started dumping their sewage into. Turned out to be this guy's butthole, the man who couldn't stop. And then there was stuff like I said, none of the stories fit together until about like the 6th or 7th issue. Then all of a sudden the stories fit together. And like one of our favorite bits in the story was skydiving Frankenstein. There was this story going on about these 2 little kids and these aliens, and I can't even remember what the whole story was, but these aliens kidnapped these little kids. And then all of a sudden, to end the story, you see outside Frankenstein's monster with a parachute, and he lands on the spaceship and wrecks all the aliens and rescues the kids. And you're like, saved by skydiving Frankenstein. And it's just like, where did that come from? And that's what kind of book it was. Until he's like around it in the teens, I think he started doing more. He started doing autobiographical stories and stuff like that, which was still good. But people who loved the crazy early stuff didn't like that later stuff as much. But I like it all. I read a book called Everything is Super recently. It was pretty weird. Reminded me of Pop Gun War. I haven't read Pop Gun War or Everything is Super. I've always meant to read Pop Gun War, but I haven't. Have you found decent inking brush from Dick Blick you recommend? I'm fine with budget alternatives to the Sables, as you've been testing some out over the years. Yeah. Most of the rounds you get, you want like a number 2 or a number 4 round. Where are they? Most of the synthetic brushes I've tried are pretty good. They don't last long though. Like here's a Princeton Aqua Elite. Here's one I've been using. What's the name on this? Soho Graphic Artist Round. This one's pretty good. This is a real little one. But you want a number 2 and a 2, 3, and 4. What 3 is what I usually use. 2 I use small, and 4 sometimes because the cheap ones are often smaller than the others. But this one was pretty good to mimic Kaminsky. But almost all of them are decent. Because it used to be. If you got an artificial hair brush, they were terrible. But almost all the ones I've tried have been good. I read Paying for It. Creepy stuff. Especially the TripAdvisor kind of site for prostitution, to which he was a regular contributor. I found it interesting because I know nothing about it, but you know what? If prostitution is safe and legal, why not let him indulge? Oh, yes, we were talking Yummy Fur. That's what we were doing. And there's the original Yummy Fur stories are collected in a volume called Ed the Happy Clown. Yeah. Since I love slice of life stuff, as you said, Paying for is creepy stuff. Sometimes you got to go with stuff that's not sliced from your life. It's sliced from somebody leading a completely different life than you.
Do you think Chester Brown is a fan of Fletcher Hanks?
Probably. I mean, I can see
getting the crazy ideas.
Fletcher Hanks.
Yeah, skydiving Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
Looks like a Fletcher Hanks plot from Phantoma.
Yeah, it's funny. I finally read the Fletcher Hanks stuff 2-3 years ago. And I was shocked at how good it was. Because it seemed to me to be one of those things that's supposed to be so bad it's good. It's actually good. It's just really weird. I mean, Fletcher Hanks could tell a story and could draw and could cartoon. It's just the stories he told were really strange. Because it's definitely not so bad it's good. It's actually good. Fletcher Hanks. It's just weird, man.
Which is amazing considering we're talking about a 1930s comic.
Yeah. I mean, it's very readable. You could hand that to anyone today and they could read it. I mean, it's not like, a lot of stuff from back then you struggle to get through. Not his stuff. His stuff is smooth and flies by just weirdly. Emphasize some great deals on Japanese-style cheap brushes for less than 20. Those Japanese brushes are tough, though. You really have to know how to use them. Japanese calligraphy brushes are not for the faint of heart. If you're just starting out, you do not want to use a Japanese calligraphy brush. Woo! Because first of all, they're meant to be used differently than watercolor brushes. Let me see if I got a Japanese calligraphy brush here. Where is one? There we go. This is even a small. I bought some Japanese calligraphy brushes when I was a student, and they scared me away from Japanese calligraphy brushes. Here's one. See, and this is a small tipped one. And this is, so they get really big. And this is a watercolor brush right up against the blue of my hand. And the way you use like a watercolor brush for ink is you kind of drag it. I call it the European way. You kind of drag it across to make lines with, and you make thick to thin lines. With a Japanese calligraphy brush, you use it up and down, and you use the tip of it. Imagine making Japanese characters. And if you ever see a master calligrapher with one of these, the brush dances across the page when they're using, and they dab the brush on the page and push and pull, and it's just a completely different hand motion than this, or even so it really is, and it doesn't hold. And it doesn't hold together this. If you try to use one of these the same way you use one of these, it's difficult. And they're so big, it's tough to make small lines with, like you do in a comic book. I used to use the large Japanese brushes for purposefully splattery drawings. Yeah, that's one thing you can use them for. Once you break that horse, you get a great line on the calligraphy brush. Yeah, but it's like I said, it's a completely different method, and it takes a lot of practice to get good with it. I wouldn't. It's not for beginners. I mean, beginners using calligraphy brushes practice their calligraphy for a couple of years before they get good with one of those brushes. So great watching those videos. So incredible. Yeah, it's like sometimes I'll go Japanese with my brush, but not all to do it differently. But not all. I haven't used. I bought one of these recently to try and use again, but I haven't gotten to use it yet. But like it's a completely different method. If you're good at it, you can go fast with them too, because it's not about getting little perfect lines. But yeah, I bought one of these when I was 18, 19, and was scared away from it for 10 years. Japanese calligraphy. Yeah, if you ever look on YouTube for Japanese calligraphy or Chinese calligraphy masters, they're something else. It's just like bloom, 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 bloom. There you go. His ink page is 24 by 36. Yeah, that's a good place to be using those brushes. Yeah. Read somewhere that Yummy did work for domestic abuse shelters, and they got really pissed when they noticed a misprinted page that you. Okay, so that's when he was making mini comics. I bet he was making mini comics on their photocopiers, and they found some of his stuff. That'd piss him off. Did you read anything this week, Paulo?
No time. I was on a deadline for the car magazine, so
he wrote 2 reviews of test drives just before coming on here. Naked Ghost Vampire Girlfriend. Yeah. I imagine anybody who saw someone making mini comics of those early issues of Yummy Fur on their photocopiers would be like, what the? I made some mini comics on Marvel's photocopiers in the 90s.
Don't tell them.
Another comic I got this week, Once and Future. What number we got? 25. Here's another thing I'll complain about. I was reading this interesting article in the back, but then gave up because look at this font size. This teeny tiny font size, and they put it on a gray background too. Look at all this room they had. They really needed black up here. They couldn't have made the font bigger so we could read this. And this is all about, it was interesting because Ollie McNamee is a senior editor at comiccon.com. You can find the Arthurian, and he does stuff about Arthur. And he was going into all the different places that, because Once and Future has been doing all sorts of the different Arthurian legends are mixing together in this. So he's going through all the different places he got the Arthurian legends from. And I read about 2 columns of this, maybe 2.5, before I just gave up. I'm like, oh my God, this is so difficult to read. This is when bad design lets me down. Or design lets me down. Bad design. It's just like, why? The most important thing here is the type, and you make it this small. It just drove me bonkers. I'm like, why did you bother to put it there at all? That's like 6-point type or 5-point type. That's crazy. By the way, the smallest you should generally go in type to be readable is around 8-point. You don't want to go to 6 for 5-point type and expect anybody to read it, especially putting a gray background behind it. Let's decrease the contrast. The type is so small. Let's decrease the contrast to make it harder. That's my biggest complaint this week. I liked all the comics. Would have liked to read that article in the back, because in this one Robin Hood shows up. But it's not the Robin Hood from the stories with it's not the Robin Hood we know, who was a nobleman who left to fight King. Because she specifically said that was the king co-opting the Robin Hood story, making him a noble. Before that, he was the king killer. Mm-hmm. So that Robin Hood and his merry men, he was not a nobleman, he was killing noblemen. So that's the Robin Hood they went to look for, because there's like 3 or 4 warring King Arthurs. So they wanted somebody who could kill King Arthur. But all these historical figures are monsters. They're like not really, they're monsters out of a storybook. So none of them can really be trusted. So it was pretty cool stuff here with Arthur, with Robin Hood showing, and they just keep introducing more and more characters out of stories and legends. So, and it moves really fast. So I'm enjoying this one.
Yeah, I think the version that we're most familiar with regarding Robin Hood is from Hive and Hope.
Yeah.
Which is pretty modern.
Yeah. The Sumerian books from Ablaze do something similar. Maybe not quite that small, but pretty... Yeah, that's because those are the European graphic album size ones that are shrunk down. I would buy those if they wouldn't. And I don't know why. There's no way I'm going to read those Conan stories that way. Oh, those little tiny ones in the back. That's right. I don't know why... More people haven't. Everybody should take a. Oh, what's his name? Guillaume March's. Guillaume, is it? How many syllables in that?
Guillaume, 2 syllables.
Guillaume. Guillaume March's. What he did for Carmen when he did it he did art that fit both sides. He put a little more bleed art on the sides of his European album size art, so it could print the American way too. Because I remember looking at those and figuring out that's what he did, because he just I think it was the top, anything that bled off the top and bottom, he just added an extra ½ inch to the art. So if I'm not sure what the original art size is for the European albums, but let's just say it's 14 by 12 by 15 or 12 by 16, and the American one needed a little more on the side, so he just made it 13 by 16 and didn't put anything important on the side, so it fit both formats. I don't know why more people who are making stuff for both markets haven't caught on to that yet. Yeah, the text at the back, right? Those I forgot they were printing those original Conan stories in the text at the back. That's the little tiny. Who's going to read that? But I would be buying those Ablaze ones if they weren't printed at comic size. I brought one or two of them and they were okay, but speaking of printed at comic size, this is kind of neat. But once again, I picked up. Has anybody out there seen these ones? This is when Heavy Metal Elements, after Starward by Steve Orlando, art by Juan Chavrin. Who can read that font? Shavrin. Okay. Well, I didn't know Tim Seeley is one of the editors on Heavy Metal now. Joseph Illidge and Tim Seeley. But what they did, since what this is sometimes Heavy Metal takes a few chapters of their whatever story and publishes it as a comic book. And they've been $2.99, but this one was $3.99, but there was more pages than normal too. And I just flipped it open and liked the art and the coloring, but they put this little design down the bottom. So instead of making it float in the middle of the page, because it was made magazine size, they bleed the top off the top and put these little designs down the bottom. I think that's better than that's better than nothing. But I think like Guillaume March figured it out. Put a little extra, put a ½ inch extra on the top and bottom of your original art, and it'll fit right in the comic book format. And it's nothing important, so it doesn't have to print. Just do another ½ inch of bleed on the top and bottom, and you got it. But, that reminds me. Did you see my video on the John Buscema Artist Edition?
Mm-hmm.
The production thing I discovered, I don't know if everybody watched that video, but the production thing I discovered in it, looking through those, was Marvel and DC. I don't know when they started it, but it was in the 60s because the paper's printed. Marvel and DC always gave their artists, at least for their covers, possibly their interiors too, I don't remember, but definitely for their covers, pre-printed Carmen was originally not European stuff. What I think he did, he made it. I was examining it when it first came out. He could print it either size because I could tell that the copy safe area was European, but he added extra art to the original art. So he could print it because usually when you print European stuff, and he was also using the most modern copy safe areas. When you shrink stuff down for European stuff to the American stuff, there's usually extra space at the top and the bottom. I could tell it was still shrunken down a little bit, but he drew extra stuff at the top and bottom for the American versions. So I think he could print it in either way, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, really. That's what I'd have to look at them again, but that's what I figured out as I was reading them. But anyway, Marvel and DC gave you paper with pre-printed border. That's what I'm imitating. When I do my Dreams of Things covers with all these markings on the outside, that's what I'm imitating. The pre-printed paper from Marvel and DC. It would say Marvel Comics up time, not really. And it would give you these registration marks that are over here. There they are. These crop marks that are over here. And and it gives you a big black border around the outside. So the artist knows exactly what size. Because some artists, they just don't think about size. They get close and they're okay. But during I forget what year it was, sometime in the mid 60s, comic book original art went from 16 by 20 to 11 by 17. And that happened somewhere around Avengers 50. And if you and I noticed this looking through the John Romita Artist Edition, because they had gatefold covers, because that's an 11 by 17 book. So all the original art is 11 by 17, except they had a few covers thrown in that were done at the bigger size, 16 by 20. So they were on the gatefolds. And I was like, wow, looking at the gatefolds. But then I know it was issue 57, the famous Vision one, the first Vision cover. And one cover before it had extra art pasted on it because somebody didn't get the size right. And there was no pre-printed paper. And then by issue like 60, they now had pre-printed cover paper for the cover at 11 by 17. So somewhere between them going from 16 by 20 to 11 by 17, there was no pre-printed paper for them. And John Buscema got, and one on the note, it said, "Inker, please add extra ½ inch of art to left and right and top." Because John Romita didn't measure out the artboard right, because he wasn't used to measuring them out, because he always used pre-printed paper. So I found that interesting. I never knew that before. There was a period in time when they switched sizes of the paper. They switched sizes of paper before they had the pre-printed paper ready to go. I must imagine that annoyed a lot of whoever the production guys were at the time. That must have really annoyed them. King Spo loved that John Buscema video. Glad. I have fun making those. They're fun to look at. I guess Chris is going to be more than an hour late.
Was he done coloring?
I don't know where he is. If he was coloring, he'd be here, I would imagine. Because he's been chained to his computer doing coloring. Matter of fact, last week, if you remember, he couldn't see the colors.
Yeah.
He couldn't see color anymore. He's just going by the numbers.
Maybe he had a new gig that he had to do.
Yeah, who knows?
In his Krusty Bunkers like studio.
Who's in there with him? He's in there. Brian Smitty Smith is in there with him. Randy Green is in there. And Jody, whose last name I don't know, is in there with him. I don't think he's a comic book artist, though. I think he's some kind of commercial artist. I think there's 4 people in that studio and a lot of toys. Boy, that's a lot of toys.
You think you're a smarter businessman as an artist if you do commercial art alongside comics?
I think you just go where the money is. If you can think about it, if you can get a job that pays 4 times what your job pays, you take it. It has nothing to do with being a smart businessman.
Because I'm on a new Facebook group, because one of the guys of the comic book historians created his own comic book historians group. And it's mostly the same people, but he wants to try different ideas there. And I shared when I got into the group, I posted a GG page from Jerry Spring talking about how he was the forerunner of dirty westerns, and I wanted to put something with the Mercenary because Josep Segredes only started doing comics at age 40. He was a commercial artist before that, and the comic was successful enough that he quit being a commercial artist to only do the comic, and,
Well, that's
and
good.
it did what it's not something that you could do as a monthly comic. That thing had oil paintings,
Oh, wow.
so it did take him a while. And
Yeah. Though I was reading, I have to say, as much as I like Neil Adams' art, I'm more of a fan of what Neil Adams did for comic book artists.
Mhm.
In terms of, he always fought for the comic book artists, and he didn't have to. Most other comic book artists wouldn't. And somebody, since he died last week, was recounting a story of how he, in the 60s, how he was the first, because I also, there's no one really of his generation in comic books. Because he was kind of in between. There was the original guys who started in comic book, the Jack Kirby's, Joe Simon, Joe Kubert, all those guys who came in the golden age. And they were all still there in the 60s. And like the new guys really didn't come into the late 60s, early 70s. The Jim Starlins, who were the Steve Englehart writer, all those guys who came in the late 60s, early 60s, Jim Steranko. Neil Adams was really in between those two generations. And he was the only guy in between those two generations. There weren't a lot.
Trying to come up with names. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to artists. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I never thought about it before.
Yeah, because Barry Windsor Smith comes in at 68. Starlin, 70, 71?
And Neil Adams was probably 10 years older than those guys, at least, right?
Yeah.
So I forget who was telling a story, but it might have been Mark Evanier. I can't remember. Was telling a story about what Neil did for other artists. And he described it as all these other old artists, including Jack Kirby and all those other guys, were all Depression era guys. So they were the you're lucky to have a job guys. And the editors took advantage of it. They would tell them they're lucky to have a job. Yeah. Adam started at 66 in DC, but he was already well established. He already had done a comic strip, amongst other things. Romita was around though in the 50s.
Yeah, Romita started around 51, 52, I think.
Yeah. Guess he might have been at Archie before then. He did his MD strip and other things. And he was a successful commercial artist even then, when he was doing comics. But he told the one story of, I forget which editor, I don't even know if he named names. One of his regular artists bought in. Wally Wood was big in the 50s.
Oh yeah.
He was like one of the first fan favorite artists at EC Comics in the 50s. Early 50s even.
Yeah, it was Wally Wood and Joe Orlando.
Yeah. So he said the editor came in and the editor came in and it was, I think Mark Evanier, who was his blog. The editor came in and it was one of these, Depression era guys who always did a good job, reliable, good artist. And the editor literally dangled his check as he was looking at the job he just handed in, going, I don't know, I think I did, just because just to make the guy grovel, and then gave him his check. They didn't do that to Neil Adams, and Neil Adams stopped them from doing. He kind of empowered the guys. Good evening, Wilson. Steranko started at Marvel in 66.
Steranko did a couple of comics for Harvey Comics in 65.
Here, we should.
Tiger Boy, was it? Those things was there.
Since Chris never came on and Scott isn't here, I'm going to send Wilson an invite if he wants to come on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. All right, I just send Wilson an invite if he wants to come on because
writers started in the 60s. When Roy Thomas got in, he brought in Gary Friedrich. Yeah.
And the other story he told was of Neil Adams. Once again, Neil Adams got such a reputation for standing up to the artists.
Mm-hmm.
This was on Mark Evaniers' blog. Alex Toth did a job. Another guy from the 50s. Alex Toth did a job for DC. I think he said it was even Hot Wheels #7, where okay, Wilson will be on in a few. He's getting something to drink. Where he left like negative space around the lettering or something, and he blackened in the borders.
Mm-hmm.
And the editor didn't like that because that's not what DC did. So he sent the job down to the bullpen. It was like Sal Amendola or something, another artist who worked in the bullpen at the time. And he wanted him to whiten all the borders and close up all the balloons. And he was like, and he knew the job was beautiful. He was like, I don't want to do that. And I think Mark Evanier said he was in the bullpen that day. And Sal, I think, was it Sal? I can't remember if it was Sal Amendola. Someone like that was like, he wants me to do this. And Mark Evanier goes, what are you going to do? He's going to go, I'm going to wait till Neil gets in. Neil came in that day, and he went over and told Neil what he wanted him to do. Neil said, give me those pages. Took the pages, went into the editor's office, was in there for 20 minutes, came out and said, don't touch the pages. It's okay. And they printed them like, but that's what Neil did. He stood up for him because he could, he could too. He didn't have to, but he could because he was bigger than DC Comics. Because like I said, the editors all wanted the artists to know that they're smaller than DC Comics. But Neil wasn't, because he already had a syndicated comic strip, and he had plenty of advertising money. He was already well established, so it was a different thing. I'm looking at Mike's Amazing World of Comics for my stats. They're missing some stuff like Steranko at Tower. Okay.
Is there Steranko at Tower? I know there was Steranko at Harvey. Then I'm also on Mike's Amazing World. Dan Adkins starts in 65 at Tower with Thunder Agents.
Okay.
Because he only goes to Marvel way after that. First credited Marvel.
Listen to the stream. How you doing?
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
Not too bad. Chris will be an hour late. An hour and a half ago.
I had just finished dinner and I was like, let me see what's going on. And I saw you guys were on. I was like, let me check it out. So what's the topic? What are you guys trying to figure out?
Neil Adams right now. And I was just saying that as much as I like Neil Adams' artwork, I'm more of a fan of what he did for creators in comics.
Okay. I was
he really did a lot. I was telling some stories from Mark Evanier's blog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Adams was a very confident young man. He was probably in his mid to late 20s at the time. Yeah. But he was well established. That's just, he was talented and well established. I felt sad for Sienkiewicz when Adam died. Yeah, he was unhappy. I saw him post some stuff. Saw an interesting post by God, do I still have it here on Twitter? Oh yeah, by Brian Hitch. Posts, whilst my work may not be as overly detailed as it once was, Ultimates onward, I am now drawing 40 plus pages a month and I'm much, much happier. No genie OCD and associated anxieties for a line missed or a background detail. I'd be terrified someone might not notice was missing. Win. There's something I didn't know. Brian Hitch from Ultimates onward had some sort of OCD that was driving him to put detail that was unnecessary in the background of comics. pages, and he was killing himself. I was like, oh, that's an interesting confession by an artist. I never heard anyone else. I've seen some artists who I thought had some sort of graphomania going on, but that was an interesting revelation from Brian Hitch, who is, I guess, doing a Venom comic right now. I see some people mentioned, but I haven't seen it. But man, OCD in artists. There's a topic. I wonder how many artists have OCD.
Probably all of them to some sort of extent.
I don't have any. I'm lucky enough not to have any OCD, but
I think in general, artists are, their own worst critics. And
oh yeah, there is that.
We're always chasing that style or what we feel to be a style. And then at some point, I'm guessing, at some point we realize, oh, maybe we should become like Alex Toth, where it's simple line work, but it's getting to that point.
The problem is that's really, really hard to do.
Yes. Definitely.
I wonder if it was legit. People tend to throw OCD thing around quite a bit. I believe it's legit. He also said he was, he mentioned something about being bipolar. So I imagine that, I don't think that was throwing it around. I've heard people throw it around. I know what you mean, but I don't think he'd be. Yeah, graphomania is such a good word. Yeah, that's a good one. Graphomania. That's the compulsion to fill up every inch of the page with graphite.
Now the question is, are they filling it up because they want to put it in there, or are they filling it up because it's a distraction to how bad the art could be?
No, they're filling it up. That's a different thing.
Okay.
They're filling it up because they have a compulsion to fill every inch of the page.
Sometimes I don't feel like putting enough on the page.
Oh, by the way, I have to tell, as a production guy, I have to tell you my discovery. I'll do the quick version. I don't know if you saw my video about the John Buscema book.
No, I did not.
I did a video on the John Buscema Artist Edition, which has a lot of his stuff from the 60s. But one of the interesting things is it's an 11x17 book, but they obviously had some of his covers from back when the stuff was 16x20. Okay. And they put it on gatefolds that open up so they could print them sideways. But I had noticed that when they went from the twice up to the 1.5 times up artwork, there was a couple, they did that before they had the pre-printed paper. Because if you look on the twice up ones, you can see the pre-printed paper that they did, that the covers were drawn on. But then Avengers 57, the famous Vision one, has about an inch added to the bottom of the artwork, and it's not on pre-printed paper. And then I think one that was a couple issues before, you could still read the note on the bottom that said, "Inker, please add 1/2 inch of art to either side, to left and right, and the top." So it's like for those 2 issues without pre-printed paper, they got the size wrong and then had to add art. So it was like, oh, that must have driven the production guy crazy. They changed the size before they had the paper printed for it. Yeah. I never knew that before looking through that.
I wonder, again, it's you hear so many stories about what happens with the artwork, and that, paper, if people don't know, Marvel had supplied the paper up to a certain, or at a certain point. But there was always the rumor that there would be some times where they wouldn't get the paper, so they would have to draw on the back of already printed paper. Now, I had never come to a cover or a piece of artwork where the back was fully rendered. But there were stories that they weren't enough paper.
Knowing how filthy artists' drawing tables are, and how filthy, seeing how filthy the back of a lot of pages are, I think it would be, that's a pretty tall tale to me that someone would be able to draw on the back of the page and make a printed comic out of it, because it is the rare artist that doesn't have something on the back of that, some graphite smudges on the back of that paper.
Very much so. It's like
Yeah.
there are so many pictures. I've seen pictures of and I've held the original art where
Right.
it's just nothing but the background of just graphite and stuff like that. I have, dealing with original art, have had many times the back would have doodles and sketches
Yeah.
and drawings, and those are always fun to look at, but
Right.
never a full rendered page.
I have one. Ooh, I have an original cross-gen page back there. It might be Derek Alcoin. I can't remember who it is. But he's one of the people. There are also people who do their pencils on the back of the page.
Okay.
And then flip it around and lightbox it when they ink.
Mhm.
I have one or two pages like that. I was like, oh, so you get the pencils on the back, and you get. I always wonder how that's like. It's like you have to lay it out in reverse because it's going to be a mirror image
Mhm.
when you ink it. But there have been some comic book artists, Bob Wyachek among them, who I'm like, I look at the back of the page, I'm like, do you ever wash your drawing table? Because the back of the page is like so gray with graphite. I'm like, holy cow. How did you get this much graphite on the back of your page?
I don't recall the inker, but I do know that there was a time where, again, artists from over the years, many different eras, some were still smoking. And the pages would come in out of the FedEx box smelling like cigarette smoke.
Oh, yeah.
And you would know, oh, that came from this particular inker. They were known for that. That's what they did, that they were just sitting there smoking in front of the artwork and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And again, I still remember that to this day.
I would think that the problem with getting as good as Toth is there's no money gain in becoming that good. Not even fan adulation, just respect from yeah. Which though that was also why he was perfect for animation.
Very much so. And the other thing too is that I think yes, by working all the time and practicing and stuff like that, you could get to that point. But I also think there's this mentality of less is more. The speed factor into
Right.
it. So developing that style to like what is the perfect line that could tell the story. And yes, the animation stuff is beautiful.
Yeah, like there's no, comic book fans have always liked detail.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to strip everything down to the most basic form brilliantly without that detail. Frank Miller is the only one who ever did it. And he eventually went even away from it with Sin City. He didn't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like Frank Miller's Daredevil is all about stripping everything down.
But also with Daredevil, Klaus did a lot.
He did. He did a lot of embellishing, but still it was stripped down.
Yeah, definitely.
Klaus did a lot of the finishing on that. But it was but when he went and did Sin City, it was all about lots of lines.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was kind of stripped down a bit, it wasn't. But like I said, for animation, you got to know how to strip things down. So that's why Alex Toth was perfect for, that's why he did all those character designs, because that was his talent.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when. Have you ever seen any of Michael Golden's animation character designs?
No, I have not. I'm a fan of Michael Golden's work, and I have a bunch of his books that I still haven't read. So I'm sure there's probably stuff in there. But I was more of his I studied more of his G.I. Joe stuff, more for coloring. As a colorist myself, the stuff that he did with the limited palette and technology was amazing. What he did on a lot of those G.I. Joe covers with just the simple use of the coloring on it. Like there's certain artists that you could follow and just look at a piece of artwork and know it belongs to them. I could almost spot a Michael Golden coloring because of that.
Cut color. That's where I got that term from, Michael Golden. That's what he cut color. We used this. We were talking last week when Sleepy was asking Chris, or the week before, if there was modeling in the coloring he was doing, and he was using cut color is what Michael Golden always called it when there's not modeling, but you have a dark and then a light and then another light, and there's like a line, and It's literally looks like a cut rather than a modeling. I was like, so that's what he did in his. He used cut color a lot in his stuff.
Okay.
And it's like I wanted to steal these. They were so nice. It was back when Michael was art director of Marvel, and I just happened to wander into his office one morning, and on his desk were these absolutely beautiful, I mean, some of the most beautiful Michael Golden stuff I've seen, drawings of the Avengers that he was doing for, there was some animation project they were working on. So they wanted him to draw the animated Avengers. So once again, a simpler style, but holy cow, are they gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And I was in there, I was like, oh my God, these are gorgeous. And he's like, they'll never use them.
Well, if it was in the late 90s, it was Avengers United They Stand.
Was that what it was? He was like, they'll never use them. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm drawing. He's like, they won't use my designs. He's like, they never will. They'll do their own thing. I'm like, okay, but my God, these are. And I often wonder what happened because they were just like on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, kind of like, all. And I'm like, I wonder if he saved these because they were just so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't often get to see stripped down Michael Golden like that, but he can do it.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to see the costumes he designed compared to what came out, because one of the complaints about United They Stand is it looked too much like anime at the time, too much battle armor.
Well, you needed the battle armor because Toy Biz needed the battle armor.
That was another great Michael Golden line. He designed the War Machine armor. The War Machine armor with the guns on the shoulders and the big things and the stuff everywhere. I went in there one day and he was designing, he was drawing it, and I was like, holy cow, that's busy. He's like, they want a busy armor. I'm giving them a busy armor. They wanted it complicated. I'm giving it to them complicated. Nice. I was like, oh, because if you look at that original War Machine armor, it was over the top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, I wish I'd taken a photocopy of those Avengers.
Yeah, that would have been nice to see.
I don't, you don't think of it when you're in the midst of it sometimes.
No, not at all. And it's like, and you just happened to see it because you walked into the office, and it wasn't something that was going to be distributed.
Right.
My
nerdiest moment. I don't know if I've told the story before. I don't know if Wilson's ever heard it. Back there in my original art collection, I have matter of fact, it's in the John Romita Visionaries book. The piece of art from that got published in there eventually when Corey was looking for something. But remember, were you there? Yeah, you were there when Marvel moved down to the 4th floor, right? For a few months.
No, I came in after that.
Okay,
I came in after the remodel of the bullpen. Like,
this like early 92. This was.
Okay, I came in 93, 94.
Okay, it was just before the Marvel was on the 10th floor. They were remodeling it, so we all had to go down to the 4th floor, which was much smaller. So everybody's office had to be moved. So I'm in John Romita's office, talking to him about I don't know what. And he obviously had just he's in a smaller office. He's finding a space for all this stuff. And I look down at his desk, and there's a piece of scrap paper with some drawings on it. John Romita drawings. Look, there's Chris. Good evening.
Hey, guy.
Hey, Chris.
How you doing?
There's John Romita, and it's him. And it turned out he always worked with Strathmore to get the paper correct. Because Marvel, we talked about the pre-printed paper before, and inkers liked smooth paper. Pencilers liked paper with a little more tooth to it, usually. So John Romita worked with Strathmore to get sort of a compromise paper that both the inker and penciler would like. And matter of fact, they called it Marvel paper. Strathmore did. DC ordered it too. And so, like I said, this was 92. The date on so it was a piece of like scratch paper about that big with a couple of little drawings on it, some water, some like 102, 107 pens he was testing out and writing the name of the pen. And it was from like 1990. And as I'm talking to him, he picks it up and throws it in the garbage. And my geekiest moment at Marvel, I went, "You don't want that? Can I have that?" And John Romita, the nicest guy in the world, looked at me like I had 3 heads and went, "Sure, here, you can have it." And picked it up out of the garbage and handed it to me. And I still have it.
Nice.
Back in my art collection. But that was my geekiest moment. I swear, like I said, I'm usually a fairly cool customer. I don't blurt things out too often, but I blurted that out and couldn't even control my. "You don't want that? Can I have that?" Like right in front of me, he just picked it up and threw it in the garbage. And I wonder if that's what happened to those Michael Golden sketch. I hope not.
It's very well possible.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, because Michael's not known really for selling his art way back when around that time. You know, he wasn't known for selling his art. He had, and again, as the legends go, he had the reputation of ripping up artwork too.
Well, Renee has worked with him over the years on getting better with his fans. He used to resent his fans. Who knows, some sort of psychological thing going on in his head, but it was one of those, he didn't want to belong to a club that had fans of his in it kind of thing. You know, I don't want to belong to any club that would have me in it kind of thing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I know he's now good with his. I know Renee Witterstatter, who's who he was dating at the time too. I don't know if he still is, but she's his agent. Mm-hmm. She got over the years, got him in line and got him to appreciate his fans. So I know for at least a decade and a half now, he's happy to see his fans. Yeah. And when he goes, because that's what he does, the convention circuit. But like when he was there in the late 90s, he was, he kind of like, he liked it. He resented his fans for whatever reason.
Yeah, he didn't like getting compliments.
Yeah, he didn't like getting compliments. But I like it. He liked, one thing Michael Golden and I always got along. He got along with most of the bullpenners.
Yeah, I think that he has an appreciation for the bullpenners, mainly because we were all in the trenches together.
Right.
And he was there working with us. And that's what I saw. You know, my relationship with him was very good. Right. I even actually have a piece of artwork of his that I was returning, and he's like, "Oh, do you want this?" And I was like, "Yes." And it's the corner box art to the Fantastic Four.
Oh wow!
Where he did where Reed is kind of hugging everybody.
Okay.
Kind of a scene, and he was like, you want this?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll take it." You know, free artwork, yeah.
Hey, it saved Ike from selling it out of the files 10 years later.
Yeah. He
sold all the corner box art on eBay.
Did he?
Yep, stats or original.
I don't know enough of the stories with him, but it's just that I have nothing to say.
I used to return the original. I don't know how much of original art was still in there. I think there was one Steve Ditko piece still in there. Because whenever I would find original art, corner box art in the files, I would usually return it to the editor.
Okay.
Or I may have even returned it to you. I don't know, but I wouldn't let it sit in there.
I've had a few go through my hands.
Yeah, either
I even own a couple.
Right, either I returned it to the editor, or I gave it to you. I can't remember, because sometimes I'd see like original art in there from 10 years before me, and I'm like, "What's this doing in here? We have got a stat. That's good enough."
Yeah, it's funny because it's like in the where my office was, between my office and the library, there was all those filing cabinets,
Mm-hmm.
and those were all filled with artwork too. And when I
Yeah.
had time, I would go through it and I would find tons of stuff. You
Yeah.
know, like the very first Alex Ross work he did, and that was for an anthology book. I forget the name of the book. I don't know if it was a Marvel fanfare, something just in the catalog, but it was just something that we had no idea whose artwork it was, because no one ever really. It wasn't Alex Ross yet.
Yeah.
Basically, it was whatever he was doing before he developed that style that he's known for. But that was really his very first work he sold at Marvel. But I don't know if it actually ever saw print. It later got printed as an issue 0 through Wizard magazine. But it's like I happened to find that artwork that we just didn't know was sitting there. The one piece of artwork that I saw, and I wish I was able to find it again, was the very first artwork that was done by Art Adams.
Ah.
He did a story, if I remember correctly, about a kid back to his school to attack the teacher. He had like a very mean teacher, and he showed up with a gun or something years later. It was kind of very Punisher-like a story, but it was just this weird story that, again, no one could place. And then years later, I found out that was actually Art Adams' artwork, and that was still there by the time I left. But we just didn't know where it got put. So a lot of times, the artwork was just either mislabeled, people didn't sign their artwork, or it got put into a cabinet, and someone will get to it later. So when I left a lot of artwork there.
Yeah.
But and again, I don't know how far it went. We had the Malibu comic book art as well, because once Marvel bought Malibu, all that artwork came to me. And it was like, I'm ready to give it back. And then all of a sudden that came to a screeching halt, because the Malibu art returns was different than Marvel's way. Marvel's way, you had 22-page book, 14 pages to the penciler, 8 pages to the inker. Malibu had a different numbering system. And apparently each creative team may have had, or each penciler may have had some sort of thing where their contract had different numbers. My offer was, can we just break this up the Marvel way and everyone will be happy? And they say, no, there are contracts. And then it just got shoved into a drawer.
Mm-hmm.
And never got returned back. And I always felt sorry, because every now and then I would run into comic book artists who would ask about the Malibu art, and it's like, don't know whatever happened to it.
Mind the Comics asks, what happens to G. Russo's art? Do you still have Mini Marvels pages and G-Man pages, Chris?
Have all of it.
He has all. He has not sold his. You have not sold any of your art, original pages. That is.
I've sold like a little bits here and there, but not most of it. I have. I might have something right here.
He does commissions. I know that he does sketch covers and commissions.
All the G. Russo artwork I have are sketches and stuff like that I would pick up at cons, and then a few that Chris would just do for me.
Here, should we make them big?
Here's an old Secret Invasion Marvel stuff, which I think I dug that out because I had to do my first Mini Marvel strip in 10 years. Size incorrect. This is from Venom. What is it, Venom 200 or 300 from last year?
Okay.
So here's the original to that.
Do you have the stuff from the 90s still?
Yeah,
not that you have to get it right now.
I guess the mini Marvels, the early strips was 1999, and yeah,
okay.
I do have all that. It's hard to look at though.
Okay, give that young guy a break. Okay.
So here's that Michael Golden one I was telling you about.
See. Oh, cool.
So again, out of the whole page, this is what was drawn. And like I mentioned, and there's a patch over it too, because the lines were a little too thick on Reed, so he had corrected it. So basically,
Go back
yeah,
here
came
and
in. It was
look
like,
for
here you go, and he's like, do you want it? And it's like, yeah. But I never got him to sign it. I got to take it to a con with me one day and get him to sign it.
I was never a big signature person.
I wasn't myself, but eventually I started getting comic books signed just because just to have something signed. But I have never planned to really sell my signed books, so I always had them write, to Wilson or something like that.
Here's the John Romita piece.
Nice. Oh yeah, I can't believe. Yeah,
Beautiful.
Throw that away.
He threw this away right in front of me. Speedball. You see, that's the speedball pen he was trying out.
Right.
Nice water technique there. And like I said, it even got a date on it. It says 5/1/90, Plaza Strathmore. So it had obviously been sitting around his office for about 2 years, and he was finally getting rid of it. I was like, "You don't want that? Can I have it?" And actually, like I said, when in the early 2000s, when Corey Settlemeyer was putting together, I think it's the John Romita Visionaries book, I gave him a scan of this to print in the book. So it's actually published now, this piece.
What I have to find is, like, remember I was telling you I had Xerox copies of stuff? I had found copies of, I think they were calling it Little Petey. And it was basically drawing kids' version of the Marvel characters.
Mm-hmm.
And
that sounds like a great idea.
It's drawings by John Romita Sr., where it's Pete, Mary Jane, and Harry Osborn as kids. It's really cute, big heads, type artwork on it by John Sr.
Oh man, John Romita was the first artist that hooked Ranger Sly into comic. I'd love to have original art from him. Yeah. My other John Romita original art story, which there's also a scan of I don't have the art, but this was early 90s, I think. It was, do you remember those Spider-Man issues that had a hologram on the front? So
Yes.
the hologram was only about 4 by 5 inches or something
Yes.
like that.
There were 4 covers, all different colors.
Right. And one of the guys who worked at my LCS, they had gotten one in. This is before the days of sketch covers. Had gotten one in without the hologram. So it was just a white box, a blank white box, because they pasted the hologram on there.
Right. I've seen them blank. Yeah.
Right. So he was like, listen, can you ask John Romita to do a Spider-Man head for me in here? He's like, I'll pay him whatever he wants, just a quick Spider-Man head. Da, da, da. I was like, I'll ask him. So I go in, John, a friend of mine, it's a quick Spider-Man head. It's like, sure, whatever, I'll do it for him. Then it's like, end of the day, he comes out, he's like he did something wrong. He's shaking his head. He's like, I always overdo it. And he gave me the comic, and it was like, in the box, he did a full Spider-Man figure, sort of bent in the box, kneeling up like this. And It was like one of the most beautiful Spider-Man drawings I've ever seen. And I was just like, I don't want to give it to him. But I gave it to him, but at least I took a Xerox of it first.
Okay.
And they actually printed the Xerox of it in that John Romita Marvel Visionaries, if you want to see it. So in that John Romita Marvel Visionaries is my scrap paper John Romita and that, first sketch cover John Romita.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up tonight because I have it on this bookshelf.
Yeah.
This bookshelf has all my
all your Visionaries.
Or at least that Visionaries, because I know I have the John Romita one.
Let's see, another comic I got this week of my 6. Radiant Black. What do we call this, Chris?
What do you call it? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not even looking, but I'm gonna say that's a piggyback cover.
It is a piggyback cover. That's it.
I didn't even have to look.
All right. It's piggybacking on Hulk 241.
341.
341? 341, right. 241 was my era.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a couple sketch cards of that piggyback.
Yeah. Another issue of Radiant Black, solid superhero comic. He fights some bad guys. They try to make some plans. And a fireman shows up at the end. I'm not sure what this dramatic fireman thing is at the end, but a fireman finds a drone. I'm like, okay, I guess that's supposed to be some dramatic moment, but I'm not quite getting it.
He almost looks like Ash.
Ash. Oh, remember Ash? Not really.
Nope. Nobody remembers Ash. I've never read Ash. I've read one Painkiller Jane story.
Painkiller Jane is a good name. I've never really read the comic, but that's a good name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost sure I read through the comics. I couldn't tell you anything about the stories. I read it once, and then that was it.
One of the last times I talked to Amanda Connor, I haven't seen her in so many years, was when the Painkiller Jane TV show was coming out. They had like a 6-episode show or something. I was talking to her about it, and I said, Painkiller Jane, that's a good name. Do you think that helped you sell the show? She said, yeah, I really think it did.
It is a good name.
Yeah, it's a good name. King Spoet. I have that Wolverine cover in my sights for an Elvis Chicken comic with the blades replaced with shining sparks. Okay. Bob Wyacek has done some recreations of that cover too, since he was the inker on it. And it's way, way out of anybody's price range to hire Todd McFarlane.
Maybe if you give him some balls.
Sign them first. Tom Brady. There you go. Tom Brady's last home run. So how's the coloring going, Chris?
It's the same. Slow, but steady. Slow but steady.
All right. How many pages you have done?
81 done.
All right. What's your halfway mark?
Halfway mark would be like 120. 118 would be halfway mark.
All right. You're 2/3 of the way to the halfway mark. All right.
2/3 to halfway. That sounds great. You're 2/3 to halfway.
KFC Sparks. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, and good thing Wilson's here. We can talk art returns first. I completely forgot. A week and a half ago, Chris sent me an email where he said, we were discussing once, I don't think when Wilson was here, the John Byrne blank issue with just the fight in the snowstorm from Alpha Flight.
Right.
We were like, who got those pages of original art back? Did the letterer get the pages of original art back? Turned out Michael Higgins lettered it. So right. Chris said, we should ask Higgins that. We're like, well, you're the one who talks to Higgins, so find out. And he did find out and found that John Byrne got those pages of original art back that had
really
Michael Higgins lettering on them.
Wow. Wow.
There was no system for giving the letterer art, I guess.
No. I heard stories that the writer would get a page.
That was early on.
That's what I've heard. But
right.
the letterer, As a letterer, I would have liked the splash page, the page with the title credits.
No, there was nothing on the page but lettering. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There was no art.
It was the
No. I understand that.
Oh, yeah. You want the splash page?
Yeah. No, I completely agree that for that issue, Higgins should have gotten the book. Or should have gotten those art pages. He should have gotten those. That's just.
And Higgins also agreed with John Byrne. Were you there for that discussion about the Blue Line inks, Wilson?
Yes. I heard the discussion. I don't know if I was.
You heard? Okay.
But I know of that discussion of.
You know of that. Well, Higgins agreed with John Byrne that if his work was inked over Blue Line, he should get his normal amount of pages back.
Wow. Okay.
But
I could
both
thinking about it. I could agree he should get some pages. I don't know if he should get the bulk of the pages.
Those guys are both from the same old school era.
Yeah.
And everything is different now. So do any of us know any modern artists that work for Marvel or DC that work in this digital way where, okay, I did the pencils over here. I'll send you scans. You can ink them on the boards if you want.
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
So
well, I have printed out tons of Blue Line for Bob Wycheck.
So
that's common.
So does Bob have to share any of those original art pages?
He does not, because some pencilers have asked him if they could have some pages, and he's given them some pages.
But there's not. But it's not like standard to be like, oh yeah,
there's nothing, and that's for DC or anyone else who was working with DC licensing. Marvel and DC don't even care anymore. I don't think. Yeah, they don't even want to see the original.
Most of the time, right? They just get their files in. That's all they need.
They just get their files in.
Yeah, matter of fact, I know it's like because I watched every now and then. I watch like Walden Wong's channel, and he had like tubs full of artwork,
right?
And he keeps the whole books because no one's asking him for the back,
right?
He gets the Blue Line, he inks over it, and then
it's his.
It's his.
Like I said, I don't even think that maybe since about around 2005, 2006. He can't do any work now because he can't see, Bob Wycheck. He's got macular degeneration, so he's almost blind, unfortunately. But he would, because he's a friend of mine, he lives locally, but he would always come over here and I'd scan his inked pages in and print stuff out in Blue Line too. And if he didn't have me doing that for him, I don't think he would have work. The whole system changed where they don't want to see. They don't want, at some point he was printing out in Blue Line and sending the pages into DC, and DC said, stop sending us pages. This is in, 2007, 2008. They're like, stop sending us pages. Because they have no system in place for sending them, for scanning pages and sending them back. That's not the system anymore. So,
right. And they obviously have saved so much money by not FedExing and everything back and forth and all that. So tons of money had to be saved.
Right.
By removing sending in and sending out artwork. That also removes time-wise of production.
And I would also say it's 100% clear now that Marvel and DC were not buying original artwork back in the days. That art belonged to the artist. Because as soon as it cost them money to have that art sent in, when it would cost them nothing to not have it sent in, they weren't interested in the original art anymore.
Well, now that they're saving all that money across FedEx, did all the artists get a bump in raises?
No, they didn't used to use it for reprint, Chris. They had stats for that. The stats in the film were what they archived. That was all in the warehouse. The original art wasn't.
No.
Well, some of it was.
Is it possible there were ever times where they were like, yeah, we don't have the stats or we don't have the film?
Yeah, but that wasn't their reason. That they could, if they have the stats in the film, they don't need the original art.
Hang on,
Matter of fact, if they have the original art and not the stats in the film, it's more expensive because they got to make stats in film. So you don't save money having step 1. You save money having step 3.
Exactly.
Higgins can forge those if needed. Yeah, Ranger Slide. I didn't know about Bob Wycheck's eyes. Yeah, life can be so cruel sometimes. What's more precious to an artist than his eyes and hands? Yeah, Bob is very talented. But yeah, macular degeneration. There's not much you can do about it. It's the number 1 cause of blindness.
Is that the same thing Total Ben had?
I don't know, but it probably could be. I would imagine.
John Total Ben came here to Portugal once when there was an Alan Moore exhibit. And yeah, he needed his wife to...
Yeah, I would imagine. Because almost anything, like if you've got other things wrong with your eyes, they can be fixed. But macular degeneration is not much you can do about it. Let's see, the second to last comic I got this week. A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance, number 7. By the way, I hate these Image Comics split covers. They do this with a lot of their books, and I just think they're awful. They're just dull and non-striking. And
is there something on that stripe?
There's an image down there.
Yeah.
There's an image up there.
Oh, so there's part of the
logo.
Okay.
I hate the logo in the middle. I hate the random scenes that mean nothing. But the inside art is terrific.
I don't have a problem with it.
Andre Lima Araujo.
You're doing it.
Yeah, I'm getting that accent over the U down. But just the visual storytelling in this book is just terrific. And there's the story of a guy who in the beginning we thought was a hitman, but it turns out he was just a guy trying to save someone, and he tapped into this internet dark web hitman system. And now the hitmen are after him.
Yeah.
So it's one of these, there's just so much visual storytelling in it. And he's so good at it. He's one of these guys who can break down a moment and give it to you in 3 or 4 panels. And you're like, wow, it's just terrific. If you haven't read this one, you should check it out.
I'm going to buy it just for the cover alone.
Chris, buy a comic. That's how I know it's a joke. He said he's going to buy a comic.
No, I think I'm going to, on your recommendation, you sold me on how great that cover is.
I love Bob's work on the Second Man Thing series, where he got to do some covers on his own. Yeah. Matter of fact, it was, who was it?
Hey, everybody. Our superstar
up, guys?
Witchblade Tomb Raider artist, Randy Green.
Randy Green, how you doing?
What's up?
Went home.
Greg Schiegel, what's he doing here?
Well.
I might have had something to do with inviting that guy.
Oh, look at this.
Well.
It's like a Doctor Strange movie. You don't know who's going to show up.
Greg Schiegel's shown. For those of you who don't know, Greg Schiegel is a former editor at Marvel Comics, an artist in his own right who does many comics. Pix, I believe, was his all ages comic. And what are you working on right now?
Hold on. You're going to have to repeat that only because my volume went out for a second. I heard Greg Schiegel is and then what are you working on right now?
I said is a former editor at Marvel Comics.
And a formal and
in his own right.
And a formal editor. I wear a suit every day.
What? You wear a suit?
No. I'm not wearing a suit now.
You're an editor now?
No.
Was that the suit you were wearing then?
That's why I said former.
Yes, I know, but you also said formal.
When you said former, the first word that came out was formal.
That's right.
Oh, formal? Oh, sorry.
Greg
By the way,
backed off of
Paulo,
that.
this is Greg. Greg, this is Paulo. Paulo's our correspondent from Portugal.
Hello, Paulo from Portugal. What up,
Hello,
Wilson?
Greg. I remember seeing your name on the Avengers comic back in when Music was writing.
Remember Fastlane?
That's right. I was the assistant editor on the Avengers in the Busick era.
Mm-hmm.
Good days.
Okay. What are you working on right now?
Right now, well, I won't be able to work on it while we're doing this, but right now I was doing layouts for my next superhero universe book, which are these hybrid graphic novel chapter books I do.
That's a Z, right? Superhero.
Sure is. Is that showing up?
Hold on. We'll get you solo layout to show that. There we go. Superhero universe.
Yes, this is the second book of the series.
Okay.
You can unzoom me now.
There
we
go.
go.
You're back to the gang.
But it's hard to chat and do layouts at the same time.
Chris is coloring like a madman. And Wilson, are you doing some lettering tonight, Wilson?
Yeah, but at this very moment, what I'm doing is actually looking for a file for an artist who called me up and was like, "Hey, do you still have this file that we worked on back in 2012?" And
Wilson,
I do because I keep everything.
Wilson, use the search function. You'll find it faster.
Oh, I did find it.
Okay.
I'm just looking for the right one because I have like 4 copies of the same image.
Fantastic 4 copies.
Hold on 1 second. My hard drive is out in the rain.
Wait, why does he have the hard drive outside?
This is now we could talk about Jared and how he keeps a hard drive outdoors uncovered.
Yeah, thank God that asshole's gone.
Whoa, language.
No, that's an obligatory reference. Every time somebody leaves, somebody has to say it.
I nearly had a hard drive disaster today and had to order a new one.
Oh, but that's in a bag. It wouldn't have gotten wet. I didn't know that. Wait, do you think Amazon just drops loose hard drives at your door?
I don't know. If you could have seen the
Hey Greg, if Amazon shipped you a new hard drive and you knew it was in a bag, but it was like raining hard, would you just say, "Nah, I'll leave it. I can leave it for another couple hours"?
No, I wouldn't have.
If you could have seen the disaster that was my EC Comics artist edition that had all 4 corners smashed that I had to return within an hour because it was so bad. Look on my Facebook. You can see a picture of it.
They only gave you an hour to return it?
Yeah, did they only give you an hour to return it? That's what Chris just said.
No, I returned it. That's how fast I returned it. That's how smashed it was.
I've done that. I've returned things that quickly.
Yeah.
Is that the world record for return speed?
Amazon leaves things in manila envelopes sometimes. Yes. That was my fastest return speed. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't even
know if it's the world record.
And I should have.
So what conversation did I interrupt?
I don't know. What were we talking about?
You were talking about what you bought this week.
Oh, that's right. Right. I have one more comic that I bought this week. Because out of all my comic book friends, I'm the only one who still goes out and buys comics. Manifest Destiny number 46. I think this is ending in 2 issues. There's a look at the cover with some kid-like drawings on it, even though there's not a kid-like book.
I was going to say, is that the regular artist did that cover, or is that a variant?
After Chuck Jones, it says on it. What is it? Usually I get the A cover in my book. In my pull list. Yeah, this is the A cover. It's not a variant.
All right.
I'm not sure why they did a Chuck Jones tribute cover for this, but this is the one that's the Lewis and Clark expedition fight monsters.
Sure.
It's been fun. Former Marvel bullpen letterer who was before my time, Pat Brousseau, has been lettering this the whole time.
Maybe they did a Chuck Jones tribute because they knew it was coming out on National Cartoonist Day.
That could be it.
Although that was yesterday, and Wednesday was the 4th. So maybe not.
Maybe close. I have my I'm doing well in my quest to you know that cartoon that everybody always posts by what's his name, Clibben? Out of the Way Swine. There's a cartoonist coming through.
I don't know that one. I know the one where it's like that dog and everything's on fire and he says everything's fine.
No. This is the one that all of our cartoonist friends post all the time. But it always has his signature cut off. So I've been on a mission the last 2 years. Whenever it shows up, I post for them to post next time the one with his signature underneath it. And so far it's going pretty well. Most people go, "Oh, there's one with a signature on it," and repost that one. Because it just bothers me that all these people for who are cartoonists for National Cartoonist Day are posting a cartoon with the cartoonist signature removed.
That's the internet, baby.
This is going to sound like I'm being sarcastic, but I swear to God I'm not. But you're doing good work, sir.
Because we're so used to him being sarcastic to me.
Yeah.
That he may continue to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the mode we immediately fall into.
And now return to regular sarcasm programming.
What are you working on, Jared, aside from hosting this salon?
I've been teaching, which the semester just ended. I've been working on my covers to comic books that don't exist.
Okay.
Which are, let's see.
Now, is this like a random issue that doesn't exist or a full title that doesn't exist?
Well, I used to do random issues, but now I've done 137 of the Dreams of Things cover. Here, let me. I've kind of been stuck on this one series, Dreams of Things, in this dreamlike imagery. I've
followed you, like you would put images up of this stuff, and I didn't know the series didn't have full books with it. I thought these were what you were doing on your own. You were making all these books, and it was like I didn't know you were just doing the covers.
Yep, just doing the covers. And here is, I also started a Great Gatsby project. I'm doing an illustrated, just for myself I started it, since it's now in the public domain. I'm doing an illustrated version of the Great Gatsby, and this is the party scene.
So The Great Gatsby is a book I've never read because when they assigned it in 11th grade, my grade was already set. It could not be changed. So it was the last book of the year. Didn't bother reading it. Still have never read it.
There's another Dreams of Things. Well, it is a really good book. You'd probably appreciate it more now than in the 11th grade. There's the Gatsby himself done in my the colored ink style.
If I put on 3D glasses, will that be 3D?
No, I don't think so. It's got 3 colors in it. But
but everything he does has that kind of quality to it, or it looks like a blacklight poster.
Yeah.
Well, that one specifically had blue and red lines and other colored lines. That was my joke.
Oh.
Because I try to work on new things all the time, and last year I decided to come up with some sort of style of colored inks. So I've got about 32 different colored inks and trying to figure out what to do with them. So
now, when you
kind of style that I eventually developed.
When you do those covers for Dreams of Things,
yep.
Do they spark stories, and do you write those stories down, figuring I'm never going to do this story, but I'm writing it down, or it's just the cover is the cover and that is all?
The cover is the cover. Someday I want to write the stories down. I actually started writing stories down for yet another series of drawings. 100 words, about 100 drawings, but I only got 10 or 15 drawings in, and I haven't gone back to it.
And is this going to be 2 drawings where one is 99 words and one drawing is 1 word?
Nope, they're all 100 words. Exactly.
So each drawing has 100 words.
Yes. The
Interesting.
drawing which are these drawings here. My 6 by 9 inch 3 3 pen style drawings.
And are you is A and the, are those are words, right?
Whatever the word processor tells me is a word is a word. So those are all, I've been doing those ones for a couple of years now. Just, I call it my 3 pen style because I use 3 thicknesses of pen.
It's a fine name for that style.
Yeah.
All right.
And then we've got random cartoon guys talking to you. These are the 5x7 ones. I also do art card size ones. So I found out that I do, what is it called? Micro stories.
All right.
It's a style of drawing that became popular like 10 years ago. I didn't know it. Some literary person told me that.
And like I mentioned, I would see your post and there'll be just one image, then there'll be the cover, and there'll be another image. I thought this was all the same project on a book that you were working on for years, not knowing these are just different pieces.
Nope. The name of the project is Covers to Comics That Don't Exist.
Wow.
And I've got lots of different series, but for like the last 3 or 4 years, it's been all, I've just been so into the dreams of things imagery that I've been doing. Like Fascist Planet is another one. And that one's full of really kind of mean, ugly imagery, but it's tough to do. Weird, mean, ugly imagery. Good evening. Jared, on your Wednesday video, you left off what I know. I forgot that after. And you know what? I had 2 things. Every week in my weekly video, I keep 2 comics on the top of my printer from my collection just to look at the covers of. And I usually show them on my weekly video, but I somehow forgot this week. And it was a cherry Pop-Tart cover. I haven't had those out in a while. The dirty version of Archie comics. And what was the other one was a Marvel Premiere 41. I can't remember what it was though. But I made my video, posted it, sat down, and then went, oh, I forgot to show off those 2 covers.
Marvel Premiere 41. That's Secret 3000, right?
No, it's not Secret. It's right around. Oh, I forget what it was now. Darn it, I can't remember. I'll have to go look. But I don't think it wasn't Secret 3000, I don't think. There's a pile of people on the cover and a triangle. And I forgot. I think it may have been a Klaus Janson cover, but I forgot to look it up.
Klaus Janson cover. I thought it was Secret 3000 on number 41.
Maybe it was 42 then.
42 was Tigra.
No. Hold on. I'm going to have to go look now.
Torpedo. I think it was Torpedo on 39 and 40. And it was 3D Man on 36, 37, and 38. I think that was it. Wonder Man was on 45.
It was 33. You want to guess what that one was?
33. Marvel Premieres 25 and Iron Fist 26. Is Hercules 27? Is Legion of
Not Guardians. No, Guardians was 1.
What are you trying to figure out?
Who Marvel Premiere 33? Who was in it?
Solomon Kane.
The Mark of Cain.
Yes.
You got it.
Never would have been able to figure that out.
I couldn't figure it out, and I had it out here for a week.
You could have given me 100 guesses. I would have not come up with that. 100 words with 100 guesses.
You don't understand. I had this out on top of my printer. I've been looking at it for the last week, and I couldn't remember what it was.
That's the mark. That is the mark of Solomon Kane. You don't remember his name.
Yeah.
I've never actually read those comics. I do have a book that collects all of the Solomon Kane stories.
Nope.
By Robert T. Howard, and I know that the issues that appear in Marvel Premiere 33 and 34 with the Mark of Cain were also adapted with a different artist on the Savage Sword of Conan.
Okay. The Mark of Cain.
The thing about Solomon Kane is that there are a couple of stories set. a couple of stories set in Europe. The majority of stories are set in Africa, and he's always fighting monsters, and the monsters kill everybody in the villages except him.
I only ever read him in comics. I never read any of his original stories, but man, he was boring. I always found him dull.
How is he different than Ulysses Bloodstone if he's hunting? Like, are they just the same guy?
No. Solomon Kane was he was a Robert E. Howard one, right?
Yeah.
He was an actual Rob, and he was a Puritan.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so he wore that hat. He wore that hat with a buckle on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Puritans don't have a lot of personality. Besides, I want to be pure. I don't know.
When you have a hat with a buckle on it, you don't need personality.
What was Kane's mark? A Z for Zorro? I don't know. Yeah, Kane was dull. He was a Puritan, no sex, no enjoying himself. Yeah, it was just like there was nothing to him. Who comes up with the idea? I guess, Howard comes up with the idea.
Robert E. Howard.
I guess I don't really have to ask that. But yeah, there was never. I read a few Solomon Kane stories when I was a kid, and I was just like, "What? Just supposed to be interesting?"
Yeah, it's kind of. I have because I also have the Brand McMorn book. Brand McMorn has fewer stories, but they are more interesting than Solomon Kane's.
Mm-hmm. Solomon Kane.
And I never finished reading El Borak, which is an American adventurer in Afghanistan in the 19th century.
Okay. I've been reading some I actually read, being that I was commuting this semester, I actually read some thrillers. It's like, ooh, actual novels. How crazy. Because mostly I read comics and nonfiction. But Amazon gives me one free book a month, and I've been, downloading them for years. So I figured maybe I'd read one every now and then.
So that's not Kindle Unlimited. That's just
That's
free book.
Prime. If you remember Prime, they have once a month. It used to be 2 books you could download.
I see that. I just never click the thing because.
Oh, click it. Why not?
Because I'm never gonna read it.
Oh, I started. I didn't read mine for years.
I
was like, hey, if I paid for it, I'm getting it.
Oh no, look, I was just talking about this the other day. I have hundreds of digital comics that I bought whenever digital comics first started going. Mm-hmm. Like there was some sale on the Dark Horse app, and I bought tons of stuff. And then I just 2 days ago took advantage of this Humble bundle for Terry Moore's.
Oh, I saw that one. Yep.
Yeah,
I almost took advantage of it. Then I was like, I'm never going to read them that way.
So I was like, he never puts them out digitally. So I'm like, well, this is it. So I threw my money that way. I downloaded 45 graphic novels, and I'm just like, well, here's 45 graphic novels I'll probably never read.
What's funny? I'm a digital hoarder when it comes to comics. I go to the comic shop every week. I buy my indie comics, and then I go online and bootleg digital copies because they don't sell digital copies of it. I mean, then I already bought the comic. I think I should get a digital copy of it. I never look at the digital copies.
Jared, I don't disagree with you.
They're just on a hard drive doing nothing. I never look at them. Meanwhile, I actually read digital comics sometimes on Hoopla.
Hoopla is the best. Hoopla is the best.
It's like the ones I bootleg, I never look at. The ones on Hoopla, I'll actually read.
I read Hoopla stuff, and I don't read the ones I bought. Hoopla is great. Hoopla is good for especially image books, Marvel and DC stuff.
Right.
And then a lot of the kid publishers have, like Boom puts all their stuff on there. Right. It's if your library uses the Hoopla digital app, use it.
It's good stuff.
There's also movies and TV shows, and there's everything on there.
There's music on there. Yeah.
There's also music on there.
Yeah. But I'm definitely a digital hoarder, even though I don't.
That's why you needed that hard drive.
Yeah. That's why I need the limits on Hoopla focus my digital reading. Yeah, that could be it too. My hard drive. I woke up this morning turned on my computer, which, by the way, I have 7 hard drives attached to. But my main one is an 8 terabyte hard drive that's got all my work on it for the past, 25 years.
That's a big drive.
That's a big drive. And the reason I also have everything backed up off-site. I use an off-site backup called Backblaze, $5 a month. They back up as many hard drives as you want. But if something goes wrong, I got to get my info back from them. But they'll send it to you. You buy a hard drive from them if it's that much info, and they'll send it to you. So I turned on my machine this morning, and it said, we can't repair your hard drive. You can still copy everything off it and reformat it. My 8 terabyte hard drive, which I haven't backed up because you need another 8 terabyte hard drive to back it up. Guess what? They're not that cheap. $180. So I was like, crap, I got to order an 8 terabyte hard drive. So I went out to Amazon this morning at like 6 a.m. They're like, we'll have it there by 10 p.m. I'm like, good, because I can't lose my main hard drive that has all my work on it. So I was hoping it would come earlier and I could start copying it tonight, but maybe I'll wait till tomorrow, or maybe I'll start it in a little while and then go.
Yeah, why wouldn't you let it work while you're sleeping?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to do that.
That almost makes sense.
I don't like starting anything technical late like this. I go to bed at 11. I don't like starting anything technical after 9, kind of, because I'll just be up.
Oh, just thinking about it?
Just thinking about it. Just problems happen. Everything's always take longer than you think. But I think I'll just copy it over and be done with it. I won't have to think about it. Because I was like, should I clone it? Should I do this? Should I do that? I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to copy stuff over. Copy over the folders and not worry about cloning. Because it used to be, last year I got a new computer. Before then, this was my main system hard drive. And I kind of don't want, in case I have to put that in my old computer and get the system running again. But I'm like, I really don't need to. Screw that. If I need to do that, I'm in real trouble. I don't need to clone it. I can just start fresh with just the information and not 3 OSs ago. So it's things like that I think about when I'm trying to back stuff up. But now I'll be able to back it up because I'll have 2 8 terabyte hard drives.
All right.
Hard drives.
Is that the name?
Wilson?
Is that the name of this episode? Hard drives.
Hard drive. Did you find your file, Wilson? Don't leave us.
Yes, I found my file. I sent it on its way. That client's happy. I don't have to worry about that.
No cliffhangers. Thank goodness.
Yes.
No cliffhangers. My hard drive came. That wasn't a hit. That was a cliffhanger to me all day. I didn't like, especially this morning. I was all nervous.
Sure.
I gotta calm down. There's nothing I can do about this hard drive until it's delivered. So,
how do you calm down, Jared? Do you meditate? What do you do?
I started working on a piece. Working on. Hold on, I'll show you.
All right.
Where is it? Did I leave it over here? Now, first of all, working on this Gatsby stuff has been tough for me. No wire hangers. Now I'm trying to calm it down. This Gatsby stuff has been tough for me because I'm way more of an artist than an illustrator.
What's the difference?
With an illustrator, you have to be able to take someone else's idea and visualize it and turn it into usually a scene or a depiction of that idea. That's usually not how I work. I come up with my own ideas and like if you were to ask me to draw a picture of a man walking down the street in dim light, with a werewolf behind him, that's a whole different process than I use. I have to think about every one of those elements and work every one of those elements out and put together a picture. That's usually not how I work. Usually I I use a Surrealist automatic drawing method to get up my ideas and stuff like that. And I come up with my ideas as I'm working. That's why I like to I like to come up with images that kind of no one's ever seen before. So doing The Great Gatsby, it has to be The Great Gatsby. If it's not, if I'm drawing Batman, it's not a Great Gatsby illustration.
That's The Great Gatsby.
Yeah. If I'm drawing some random guy playing the piano in the middle of the ocean, that's not The Great Gatsby.
All right, I'm going to derail you for a second.
Yep.
The Great Gatsby should have been an Elseworlds.
It seems like a natural, doesn't it?
He's the rich guy. You could have another rich guy across the river, whatever. I don't know The Great Gatsby. Obviously, I never read it, but I know there's a rich guy in it.
Yeah.
Selena Kyle could be the girl that they're all in love with.
Bruce Wayne is already a millionaire.
This is what I'm saying. He is the Great Gatsby.
Oh, man. But see, what it is The Great Gatsby just entered the public domain 2 years ago.
Even more reason that we should now take that information, do an Elseworlds. That was a thing 15 years ago.
But this is one I kind of did in my style that has nothing to do with The Great Gatsby, kind of in that one of the minor characters is named Owl Eyes. And I was just doing a sketch, and this kind of happened. Matter of fact, I'll show you the original sketch. Once again, I'm just doodling, figuring out ideas, drawing stuff. And that's what I originally came up with. I was like, oh, Owl Eyes, there's a name. So I'm like, so I was like, all right. So this one became much more literal and yet still fanciful. This is much more fanciful kind of than the other stuff some of the stuff I've been doing. But that was the one. I just started inking this today, and that calmed me down. That was my meditation.
All right.
Inking. Inking. Why? What do you do to calm down?
They'll try and take some deep breaths. Try and just slow everything down. Yeah. I might take
the nose out through the mouth.
Yeah.
I wasn't in through the nose, out through the mouth panicky.
I might take a walk. Might just get out of the space to.
Yeah. I wasn't at that level of sort of panicky. I was more the beginning stages of, oh my goodness, I got to fix this. How do I fix this? I ordered the hard drive. Like, oh right, that's how I fix it. Now what do? I want to fix it. Well, I already did what I had to do, but I'm still in that jumped up, I have to fix it mode.
Yeah. I might do a crossword. That's a thing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll call Chris.
He'll calm you down.
Well, it's more just to like get it out, right? Like sometimes it's calm just to get something out. Like you write an email, you get the stress out of your head.
I've always been told there's nobody more calming than Chris. He's Mr. Steady Freddy.
He can be. He can be like that splash of cold water you need to set everything right.
I've been calibrated to only heckle Jared, and that's.
I figured you could always count on Chris feeling a little worse than you, so he'll make you feel better.
That's a sadistic look of just like find somebody that feels worse.
Yeah, but it works, doesn't it? That's where you.
I don't know. Not if you have empathy.
Chris doesn't even pay attention to you. No, he's busy working. Truce Bane instead of Bruce Wayne. Oh crap!
Internally,
then
I'm agreeing with Jared.
Backs. Wait, what was that, Chris?
I said I'm hearing it, but I'm just agreeing with what Jared is saying. I'm like, okay, yeah, this feels
Batsby
right.
Batsby just punched Daisy. We got a lot of Batsby ideas going on.
I'm telling you, the thing is, this is gold.
Especially if he's drawing. Well, my idea was Great Gatsby versus Dracula.
Okay.
Everybody was fighting Dracula, but I was also going to do George Washington versus Dracula too. So
didn't they do Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter already?
They did, but Dracula's not in it.
But but is the bit that George Washington is biting them in the chest with his wooden teeth?
I figured it'll take place during the Winter Valley.
So hold on. So you did not think of him biting their?
No,
fighting
I
the.
did not.
You blew it, Jared. You
No.
blew it. The guy's got wooden teeth. If he sharpens them into fangs, and he's attacking the vampires in their own backyard with their own weaponry.
I saw Washington more as a general. He's got his men with him. He's
Yeah,
hunting in the woods.
He could be generally biting them in the chest.
Maybe that could be the climax. You never know.
Oh my God! It's right there. It's right there.
You think George Washington with his wooden teeth will be able to bite through the chest?
Yes.
Of a vampire.
Of course, everybody knows.
Through his heart with those long teeth.
Everybody knows George Washington could unhinge his jaw, open it perfectly open, and then clamp down and take out chunks of people's chests. These are facts.
Splinters. Then you have to get the silver out with tweezers.
I just had an idea for Dracula versus Dracula, in that the real world Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, is totally pissed off that his vampire stole his identity and is hunting him down.
It's a multiverse story.
Yeah, whenever he introduced himself, I am the Prince of Wallachia, Vlad Tepes, the Dracula of Wallachia. Oh, you're Dracula? Are you a vampire? No, that's the other guy. I don't bite people. I just impale them.
And he puts him on a big stick to make his point.
Yeah. The real Dracula is going to impale the literary Dracula.
Well, our salon is almost ended for the week. Teenage Mutant Vampire Gatsby. and hippo ivory teeth. We got lots of Gatsby Dracula ideas. All right. So we're going to say goodbye for the week. We've been on for 2 hours and 45 minutes. At least Paulo and I have been.
Yes.
That's a long time.
We'll have to add Greg to our salon list. See if he wants to come on some other weeks.
Maybe I'm mercurial that way. You never know. You never know.
I haven't seen you in ages. You came on to one of my Tuesday night drawing clubs like a year and a half ago. Haven't seen you since.
Yeah, I'm like a ghost.
All right. So say goodnight to everybody.
Good night to everybody.
We'll end the broadcast. We'll catch you next time.